Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Venom Sage, the perfect host of the God-Symbiote Naruto x Black Cat Marvel Comics. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Black Awakening. Darkness. Not the gentle darkness of closed eyes, but something viscous and alive. It poured into Naruto's wounds like liquid night, seeping past torn flesh and fractured bone. The pain that had been screaming through his body moments before dulled to a distant echo. Live. The voice wasn't the Nine Tails. Naruto knew that growl intimately after 17 years. This was different, smoother, colder, ancient, perfect match, perfect host, live. Blood bubbled in his throat as he tried to respond. The mission had gone catastrophically wrong. What should have been a routine scroll retrieval had become an ambush. His team, Naruto. Sakura's voice penetrated the darkness, desperate and fading. Stay with me, your chakra it's changing. What's happening? He couldn't answer. The darkness was inside him now, spreading through his chakra network like ink dropped in water. It twined around the Nine Tails chakra, neither fighting nor merging but dancing with it. Two predators circling, assessing. We're losing him. Another voice. Captain Yamato. The seal is fluctuating. I can't. Naruto felt himself sinking deeper. Not into death, but something else. Somewhere between consciousness and oblivion where memories floated like debris after a storm. So much pain in you. So much strength. We will be magnificent together. The darkness had a texture now. Slick and cool against his mind. Tendrils of it brushed against his thoughts with curious gentleness. Not invading. Exploring. What are you? Naruto managed to think. I am Kurokami. I have slept within the fox for centuries. Now we wake together. Then even this strange awareness faded, and Naruto knew nothing more. Beep, beep, beep. The rhythmic sound penetrated Naruto's consciousness first. Then antiseptic smells, harsh and chemical. Hospital. Again. He opened his eyes to blinding fluorescent lights and immediately shut them with a hiss. Too bright. Way too bright. Like staring directly into the sun. Naruto. Hinata's voice. Soft as always, but with an undercurrent of concern that seemed to vibrate through the air. Had her voice always carried such distinct emotional textures? The lights. He managed to rasp, his throat raw. Too bright. Fabric rustled. He could hear individual threads sliding against each other, and then the red glow behind his eyelids dimmed. Better? Hinata asked. Naruto cautiously opened his eyes again. The overhead lights were off now, the room lit only by afternoon sunlight filtering through half-drawn blinds. Hinata stood by the window, one hand still on the cord. Yeah, thanks. He pushed himself up, expecting pain, but found none. Stranger still, he felt good, energized, hungry. How long was I out? Hinata returned to the chair beside his bed. 3 days. Sakura-san has been checking your chakra network hourly. She just went to get something to eat. 3 days should have left him weak, stiff. Instead, Naruto felt like he could run laps around Konoha. He flexed his hand experimentally, watching the play of muscles beneath the skin with newfound fascination. You should still rest, Hinata said, her pale eyes tracking his movements. You were very badly injured. The hesitation in her voice triggered an alarm in Naruto's mind. How bad? Hinata looked down at her hands. You should have died, Naruto-kun. Sakura-san said. She said your heart stopped twice during emergency treatment. Memories flashed through his mind. The ambush. Fighting 3 unknown assailants with strange weapons that seemed to absorb chakra. Pushing his teammates to safety as the cave collapsed, but nothing that explained how he'd survived. The Nine Tails, he asked. The familiar weight of the Biju's presence felt different somehow. Not gone, but changed. That's what everyone thought at first, Hinata replied. But Yamato Taiko says the seal's behavior was unlike anything he's observed before. Before Naruto could ask more, the door slid open. Sakura entered, carrying a tray of medical supplies. She stopped abruptly when she saw him sitting up. You're awake. Her professional demeanor Riley cracked with relief before she composed herself. How are you feeling? Any pain? Disorientation? I feel great, Naruto answered honestly. Better than great, just hungry enough to eat Ichiraku out of business. Sakura approached, her trained medical gaze assessing him. Your healing factor has always been impressive, but this is beyond anything we've seen before. May I check your chakra network? Naruto nodded, and her hands began to glow with diagnostic jutsu. As her chakra brushed against his, something inside him recoiled violently. Darkness exploded behind his eyes as a hiss echoed through his mind. Threat. Asterisk. Naruto gasped, jerking away from Sakura's touch. Both women stared at him in alarm. What happened? Sakura asked, hands still glowing. I don't. Naruto began, then froze as he noticed something strange. His shadow on the wall wasn't matching his movements. It seemed to ripple, edges blurring as if it were made of liquid rather than absence of light. No time yet, not ready, hide us. Asterisk. The voice from before, Kurokami, whispered through his consciousness. Instinctively, Naruto forced his chakra to calm, to smooth over whatever had disturbed it. Sorry, he said, manufacturing a sheepish grin. Guess I'm still jumpy from the mission. Try again. Sakura looked unconvinced but resumed her examination. This time, Naruto felt the darkness inside him reluctantly acquiesce, drawing back like a wild animal retreating to the depths of a cave, watching but not interfering. Your chakra flow is unusual, Sakura said after several minutes. There's some kind of interaction happening between your natural chakra and the nine tails. It's not harmful. In fact, it seems to be extraordinarily efficient, but I've never seen anything like it. Is that why I feel so good? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. He could feel his body humming with energy, senses sharper than they'd ever been. Sakura frowned. Possibly, but I want to run more tests before you leave the hospital. No tests. Dangerous. They will fear what they don't understand. Asterisk. The voice was stronger now, more distinct. Not a sound exactly, but a presence brushing against his thoughts. Actually, Naruto said, swinging his legs over the side of the bed, I think I need food first. Real food. I'm starving. Naruto. Sakura began, her tone taking on the dangerous edge that usually preceded violence. I promise to come back for tests, he said quickly. But if I don't get some ramen soon, I might actually die for real this time. Hinata's soft laugh diffused the tension. I could bring food here, she offered. That way Sakura-san can continue monitoring you. The compromise satisfied everyone, and soon Naruto was devouring his fifth bowl of Ichiraku ramen that Hinata had delivered. The familiar flavors exploded across his tongue with unprecedented intensity. Salt, umami, the distinct notes of each individual spice separating in his perception. As he ate, he noticed Hinata watching him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Her Byakugan wasn't activated, but something about her gaze suggested she was seeing more than she let on. What? He asked between slurps. Hinata startled slightly. Oh, nothing. She hesitated, then continued more firmly. Your chakra looks different to me. Even without my Byakugan. That caught his attention. Different how? It's subtle, she said. Like a shadow within a shadow. I noticed it when I was sitting with you while you were unconscious. Sometimes your skin would seem to shift. Just for a moment. Naruto's chopsticks paused halfway to his mouth. Shift. Hinata nodded, her expression serious. I used my Byakugan to check. There's something moving within your chakra system. Something that isn't the nine tails. The ramen suddenly tasted like ash in Naruto's mouth. Have you told anyone? No, she said simply. I wanted to tell you first. Relief washed through him, followed immediately by guilt for feeling relieved. Whatever was happening, he should report it to Tsunade or Kakashi. It could be dangerous. It could be a threat to the village. Not a threat, a gift. We protect what is ours. Asterisk. The voice again, stronger now that he was acknowledging it. Naruto set down his bowl, appetite gone despite the gnawing hunger still present. Thank you, he said to Hinata. I don't understand what's happening yet, but I need time to figure it out. Her pale eyes held his, unwavering. Are you afraid? The question caught him off guard with its directness. Was he afraid? There was something inside him. Something that wasn't the Nine Tails, something that had apparently saved his life and was now talking to him. By all rights, he should be terrified. No, he realized, speaking the truth. I'm not afraid. It feels right somehow. Hinata nodded as if this made perfect sense. Then I'll help you figure it out before involving others. The simple acceptance in her voice touched something deep in Naruto. No demands for explanation, no immediate assumption of danger. Just trust and an offer of help. I'd like that, he said softly. She sees clearly. She will be valuable. Asterisk. Hinata. Naruto began, uncertain how to ask what he needed to know. Have you ever heard of something called Kurokami? Her eyes widened slightly. The Black God. It's an obscure legend. Where did you hear that name? It's what it called itself, Naruto admitted. The thing inside me. Rather than showing fear or concern, Hinata's expression brightened with curiosity. It spoke to you. When? While I was dying, I think. And just now, a few times. Naruto glanced toward the door, lowering his voice. It doesn't feel malevolent, not like when the Nine Tails used to try to take over. Hinata activated her Byakugan, the veins around her eyes bulging slightly. May I look more closely? Naruto nodded, and her gaze intensified. He could almost feel her dujutsu piercing through his physical form, examining the complex network of chakra pathways within. Extraordinary, she whispered. Your chakra and the Nine Tails are still distinct, but there's a third energy flowing between them. It's not chakra exactly. It's more fluid, more adaptable. It's filling the damaged pathways from your injuries and reshaping them. Reshaping them, Naruto repeated, unease creeping into his voice despite his earlier confidence. Not in a harmful way, Hinata clarified quickly. It's like watching a master weaver repair a tapestry. The new pattern is stronger than the original. Before they could discuss further, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Shouts and running footsteps approached their door before it burst open, revealing a breathless Konohamaru. Naruto Nichan, you're awake. The teenager grinned briefly before his expression turned serious. There's been a break-in at the Hokage Tower archives. They're saying it's the Black Cat, the thief who's been hitting noble houses across Fire Country. Naruto's instincts immediately sharpened. What did they take? That's the weird part, Konohamaru said. Just some old scrolls about ancient deities or something. Nothing classified or valuable. But Kakashi-sama wants all available Junin to report. I'm not technically available, Naruto said, gesturing to his hospital room. But you're going anyway, Sakura finished for him, appearing in the doorway behind Konohamaru. Her expression was resigned. Your tests show no reason to keep you here against your will. Just be careful, alright? We don't why understand what happened to your chakra system yet. Naruto grinned. When am I not careful? The look Sakura gave him could have withered plants. I'll go with you, Hinata said, rising from her chair. My Byakugan might help track this thief. Within minutes, Naruto had changed into his standard gear and was roof-hopping toward the Hokage Tower with Hinata beside him. The physical exertion felt incredible. His body responded with speed and precision beyond anything he'd experienced before. Each leap carried him farther, each landing felt more secure. We improve you, strengthen your weaknesses, enhance your strengths. Asterisk. What exactly are you? Naruto muttered under his breath as they traveled. Symbiote, traveler, god to some, parasite to others. Truth is between. Asterisk. And what do you want from me? Perfect host, perfect match. Together we survive, together we thrive. Asterisk. Not exactly a clear answer, but Naruto sensed no deception in it. Whatever this Kurokami was, it seemed to genuinely believe their partnership was mutually beneficial. They arrived at the Hokage Tower to find Anbu securing the perimeter. Kakashi stood in the archive's entrance, examining a section of wall W. Here a circular hole had been cut with surgical precision. Ah, Naruto, the sixth Hokage said without looking up. Good to see you vertical. I was just about to visit you in the hospital. Heard there was excitement, Naruto replied. Studying the damage. What exactly was stolen? Kakashi straightened, his visible eye creasing slightly in thought. 3 scrolls from the pre-founding era. Historical accounts of regional folklore. Specifically focusing on transformation deities. Nothing that should interest a thief of the Black Cat's caliber. Black Cat. Naruto questioned. A specialis. Thief who's been operating for about 6 months, Kakashi explained. Usually targets jewelry, art, high-value items from feudal lords and wealthy merchants. This is the first hit on a shinobi facility. Hinata had activated her Byakugan and was examining the hole in the wall. The edges are strange, she commented. It's not a cutting tool or a fire jutsu. It's more like, the material was simply erased in a perfect circle. Some kind of advanced chakra manipulation, Kakashi agreed. The barrier jutsus weren't triggered either. Our thief can apparently mask their chakra signature completely. As they discussed the break-in, Naruto found his attention drawn to a strange scent in the air. Something floral but with metallic undertones, like sakura blossoms mixed with fresh kunai. He, never noticed such specific scents before, but now it seemed to create a clear trail leading from the archives toward the eastern district of Konoha. Follow, hunt, find, asterisk. The urge to pursue was overwhelming. Without conscious thought, Naruto found himself moving toward the exit. I might be able to track them, he called back to Kakashi. There's a scent trail. Kakashi's eye widened slightly in surprise. Naruto had never demonstrated tracking abilities before, but he nodded. Take Hinata with you. Report any findings before engaging. The pair departed, following the distinct scent through Konoha's evening streets. Naruto moved with newfound stealth, his footsteps unconsciously adjusting to minimize sound. The scent led them to the high-end district where visiting merchants and diplomats stayed. Stopping at an elegant inn known for its discretion and premium amenities. The trail ends here, Naruto whispered, crouching on a rooftop overlooking the inn's private garden. Can you see inside? Hinata's Byakugan activated. 3rd floor, corner suite. There's someone there, a woman, I think. She's opening the scrolls. Alone, yes. No traps that I can detect, but her chakra is unusual. It fluctuates in patterns I haven't seen before. Naruto considered their options. Standard procedure would be to report back and wait for backup, but something inside him bristled at the delay. This thief had information that might relate to whatever was happening to him. We're going in, he decided. Quietly, just to observe and confirm identity. Hinata nodded without protest, trusting his judgment. They slipped down from the roof, using the shadowy garden as cover. As they approached the building, Naruto felt a strange sensation. The shadows seemed to reach for him, welcoming him into their embrace. Darkness is our domain. Step into it. Become it. Asterisk. Following the internal prompting, Naruto concentrated on the shadow beneath a large ornamental cherry tree. To his astonishment, the darkness rippled like water, and when he stepped forward, it enveloped him completely. Hinata's sharp intake of breath behind him was the only indication of her surprise. Naruto, she whispered, you just melted into the shadow. He looked down at his hands, finding them visible to himself but wrapped in a dark, fluid-like substance that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The sensation wasn't unpleasant, rather like being wrapped in a cool, protective layer. Can you still see me with your Byakugan? He asked. She nodded. Your chakra is visible, but it's wrapped in that other energy. The black substance. Shadow walking. First gift of many. Use it. Asterisk. Experimentally, Naruto reached out to another shadow, the dark patch beneath the inn's balcony. The darkness around him extended like a tendril, connecting to the distant shadow. With a thought, he found himself stepping through space, emerging instantly beneath the balcony. That's convenient, he murmured, watching Hinata take the conventional route to join him, moving silently across the garden. Can you do that with me? She asked when she reached him. Let's find out. Naruto tentatively extended his hand. The darkness flowing around it reached toward Hinata, gently wrapping around her wrist. She didn't flinch, her trust in him absolute. With her connected to him, Naruto focused on the shadow cast by the 3rd floor balcony directly above them. The darkness surged, enveloping them both, and then they were rising through shadow itself, emerging onto the balcony without a sound. Heavy curtains obscured the interior, but through a small gap, they could see a figure moving within the suite. Hinata leaned close, her breath warm against Naruto's ear as she whispered. Female, mid-20s, unusually high chakra concentration in her extremities and eyes. The scrolls are laid out on a table. She's making notes. Naruto peered through the gap, catching a glimpse of the thief. She moved with fluid grace, each motion precise and economical. White hair cut in a sharp bob framed a face of striking beauty, dominated by eyes like emerald ice. Her bodysuit was black with white fur trim at the collar and cuffs, clinging to a physique that spoke of years of physical training. As if sensing their observation, the woman suddenly stiffened. Without looking toward the balcony, she spoke. "I know you're there. Two of you. One with chakra I've never encountered before." Her voice was melodic but sharp, like a silk-wrapped blade. "Come in or go away, but stop breathing on my curtains." Caught by surprise, Naruto exchanged a glance with Hinata. The thief knew they were there but wasn't attempting to flee. That either indicated supreme confidence or a desire to be found. Careful, she is not ordinary prey. Asterisk. For once, Naruto agreed with the voice. He nodded to Hinata, who readied herself for potential combat, then slid the balcony door open. The woman didn't turn from the scrolls she was examining. Konoha shinobi. One male, one female. The male is what interests me. Now she did look up, her green eyes fixing on Naruto with unsettling intensity. "You're the one they pulled half dead from that cave 3 days ago. The one with the unusual recovery." Naruto tensed. "How do you know about that?" A smile curved her lips. "Information is worth more than gold in my profession. I make it my business to know interesting things. And you, Blondie, are very interesting." "You're the black cat," Hinata stated, her Byakugan still active. The woman gave a theatrical bow. "Felicia Shiranui, at your service. Master thief, information broker, and currently, historical researcher." She gestured to the scrolls. "These make for fascinating reading. Especially the parts about Kurokami, the shadow deity who fell from the stars before the time of hidden villages." The name sent a jolt through Naruto. Inside him, the symbiote stirred with recognition. "She knows of us. From before. How? Asterisk. What interest does a thief have in ancient folklore?" Naruto asked, taking a cautious step into the room. Felicia's smile widened. "The same interest I have in you, apparently. Did you know these scrolls describe Kurokami as a god that bonded with worthy hosts, granting them power over shadow and form?" Her gaze swept over Naruto's body assessingly. Quote, "The legends say the last host lived over 3 centuries ago and was sealed away by a powerful priestess when the god became too destructive. And you think this has something to do with me because you arrived in Konoha 3 days ago with your chest cavity exposed to the air, your heart literally in pieces, and yet here you stand, completely healed." Felicia picked up one of the scrolls, unrolling it to reveal an ancient illustration. "And because your chakra signature matches the description of a perfect host, one with another entity already contained within them." The illustration showed a human figure shrouded in darkness, eyes glowing, surrounded by what appeared to be 9 swirling tails. "The previous host, the one who betrayed us to the fox." Asterisk. "How do you know all this?" Hinata asked, her normally gentle voice hardened with suspicion. Felicia shrugged. "Family business. The Shiranui clan has tracked manifestations of Kurokami for generations. We're not origin, ally from Fire Country. We followed legends of the shadow god here centuries ago." "So you're not just a thief," Naruto concluded. "You're a hunter." "I prefer specialized collector," Felicia corrected. "And normally, yes, I would be here to acquire a sample of the symbiote. But in your case," her expression turned serious, "the bonding is already complete. You're the first perfect host in centuries. Separating you would kill you both." She speaks truth, but not all of it. Caution. Asterisk. Naruto's instincts matched the symbiote's warning. This woman knew too much and revealed it too easily. "What do you really want?" Felicia Shiranui. She set down the scroll and approached them, moving with predatory elegance. "To observe, to record, to learn. The symbiote in its dormant form has remarkable properties: healing, enhancement, transformation. But a perfect bond, that's unprecedented in modern times. And valuable, I imagine," Hinata interjected, shifting slightly to maintain a protective position. Felicia's laugh was genuine. "Perceptive little Hyuga, aren't you? Yes, information about a successfully bonded symbiote would fetch an astronomical price from certain parties. But that's not my primary interest." "Then what is?" Naruto pressed. The symbiote doesn't just enhance its host physically, Felicia said, her eyes never leaving Naruto's. It absorbs and integrates knowledge, skills, memories. Both from the host and from anyone the symbiote has previously bonded with. Including, potentially, secrets lost for centuries. Inside Naruto, the symbiote stirred with what felt like unease. She seeks the convergence knowledge. Dangerous. World-breaking. Asterisk. What kind of secrets? Naruto asked, directed both at Felicia and the entity within him. The kind that explained why the symbiotes came to this world in the first place, Felicia answered. The kind that might prevent a catastrophe greater than any war your shinobi nations have fought. Before Naruto could respond, alarms blared throughout the village, the signal for an imminent attack. The three of them rushed to the balcony in time to see explosive tags detonating along Konoha's eastern wall. That's not a coincidence, Felicia muttered, quickly gathering the scrolls. They're here already. Who's here? Naruto demanded. The collectors. They must have tracked me. Felicia's composed demeanor cracked slightly, showing genuine concern. They want the symbiote. Any symbiote. They'll tear apart anyone who might be hosting one. As if confirming her warning, a massive explosion rocked the building next to their inn. Through the smoke, Naruto could make out three figures moving with inhuman speed toward their location. Danger. Threat to host. Protect. Asterisk. The sensation that followed was unlike any thing Naruto had experienced. Not the violent, burning chakra of the Nine Tails, but a cool, fluid strength pouring through every cell. The darkness that had been shadowing his form surged outward, enveloping him completely. His senses expanded exponentially. Every sound, scent, vibration in the air became crystal clear. His vision sharpened, colors intensifying, darkness no longer an impediment but a realm he could perceive perfectly. He could feel his body changing, muscles densing, reflexes quickening, skin hardening into something both flexible and impenetrable. When the transformation completed seconds later, Naruto knew he had become something new. His body was wrapped in the living darkness of the symbiote, forming a sleek, powerful shape. Where the Nine Tails chakra cloak had been fiery orange, this was deepest black with subtle patterns that seemed to absorb light. His eyes had become larger, white and pupilless, and he could feel sharp teeth where his normal smile should be. Hinata gasped, not in fear but in amazement. Naruto, your chakra and the symbiote have completely synchronized. Felicia's expression was equal parts awe and calculation. The legends didn't exaggerate. A perfect Venom sage. We are Kurokami now. We are the shadow that protects. Asterisk. The voice wasn't separate anymore. It resonated from Naruto's own throat, deeper and more resonant than his normal speech. Stay behind me, he told Hinata and Felicia, the words emerging as a rumbling growl. These collectors won't take what's mine. With that declaration, Naruto, now Kurokami, leapt from he balcony toward the approaching threat, darkness trailing from his form like liquid shadow. As he soared through the night air, he felt the Nine Tails stir within the shared mental space, its ancient consciousness brushing against both Naruto and the symbiote. This should be interesting, Kit, the fox commented with dark amusement. Our family just got more complicated. Landing on a rooftop between the attackers and the inn, Kurokami straightened to his full height, now considerably taller than Naruto's normal form. The three figures halted their advance, spreading out to surround him. They were humanoid but clearly not human. Their skin had a metallic sheen, and where eyes should be, they had only smooth, reflective surfaces like polished silver. Each wore identical gray suits marked with a symbol Naruto didn't recognize, a spiral within a broken circle. Target confirmed, one stated in a flat, mechanical voice. Symbiote signature detected. Class A bonding. Acquisition priority maximum. The host will be terminated, another added. The symbiote preserved. Kurokami's lips pulled back in a snarl, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. You are welcome to try. The collectors attacked in perfect synchronization, each moving at Junin-level speed. Their hands transformed into blade-like appendages that glinted in the moonlight. To Naruto's enhanced perception, they seemed to be moving underwater. He dodged the first strike effortlessly, the symbiote flowing to strengthen wherever an attack was aimed. When one blade connected with his shoulder, instead of cutting, It stuck fast in the living darkness, which immediately engulfed the attacker's arm. Consume. Learn. Asterisk. The symbiote flowed up the collector's arm, dissolving the metallic substance and absorbing it. Images flashed through Naruto's mind. A world unlike Earth, beings of living metal, ships that traveled between stars, and a hunger that consumed planets. With a violent motion, Kurokami ripped the partially consumed collector away, throwing it into another attacker. Where the symbiote had touched, the metallic skin was corroded, revealing circuitry and a viscous blue fluid beneath. The host has full symbiote integration. The third collector announced. Changing acquisition protocol. Deploy sonic disruptors. The remaining collectors produced small devices from their suits. Before they could activate them, tendrils of darkness shot from Kurokami's body, impaling the devices and crushing them. I don't think so, Kurokami growled, extending his arm. The symbiote stretched, forming a massive claw that seized one collector and slammed it into the ground with enough force to crater the rooftop. The last collector attempted to flee, but Kurokami was faster. Using the owl-walking ability he'd discovered earlier, he simply stepped through darkness and emerged directly in the collector's path. What are you? Naruto demanded, the symbiote temporarily pulling back from his face to reveal his human features. Why are you hunting symbiotes? The collector's featureless face betrayed no emotion. We serve the convergence. The symbiotes are key to preventing dimensional collapse. Your world intersects with critical junction points. Dimensional collapse. What does that mean? Instead of answering, the collector's chest cavity suddenly split open, revealing a pulsing core of blue energy. Protocol Omega initiated. Data purge and self-termination sequence activated. Move. Now. Asterisk. Acting on the symbiote's warning, Kurokami leapt backward just as the collector exploded in a blast of blue fire. The shockwaves sent him tumbling through the air, the symbiote absorbing most of the impact before he crashed through the inn's roof and back into Felicia's room. Hinata was at his side instantly, helping him up as the symbiote receded, returning Naruto to his normal appearance. Are you hurt? No, he assured her, though his head was spinning with the information the symbiote had absorbed from the collector. But this is bigger than stolen scrolls. Much bigger. Felicia approached, her earlier playfulness replaced by grim determination. Now do you understand why I've been tracking the symbiote legends? The collectors aren't just after power, they're preparing for something catastrophic. The convergence. Naruto repeated the term. What is it? Quote, a theoretical event where dimensions that normally remain separate begin to intersect, Felicia explained. The ancient texts describe it as worlds bleeding into each other, until reality itself unravels. And the symbiotes are connected to this how? Felicia gestured to Naruto's chest. Ask your new partner. The symbiotes weren't just visitors to our world, they were refugees from the last convergence. Beings that evolved to survive the collapse of reality by bonding with hosts from stable dimensions. Naruto closed his eyes, directing his thoughts inward. Is this true? Is that why you came to Earth? The symbiote's response flowed through his consciousness like dark water. Yes. We fled the unmaking of our realm. Found sanctuary here. Some of us slept, waiting. Others watched. The cycle returns. The walls between worlds thin once more. Asterisk. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Naruto asked silently. Too much too soon. Host needs time to adapt. To accept. Now circumstances force revelation. Asterisk. Opening his eyes, Naruto found both women watching him intently. It's true. The symbiote says the convergence is cyclical. It's happening again. How long do we have? Hinata asked practically. The symbiote doesn't know exactly. Time flows differently between dimensions. Felicia began gathering her belongings with efficient movements. The scrolls mention signs, increased chakra disturbances, spontaneous changes in natural laws, sightings of creatures that shouldn't exist. Sound familiar? Naruto thought of recent mission reports, unexplained phenomena across the 5 great nations. Shinobi reporting chakra fluctuations, strange beasts appearing and disappearing in remote areas. What had seemed like isolated incidents suddenly formed a pattern. We need to tell the Hokage, Hinata said. If this threatens the village, threatens our world, the 5 Kage should be informed. And say what? Felicia countered. That dimensions are collapsing and only alien symbiotes can save us. You'll be laughed out of the room. Or worse, they'll try to extract the symbiote for study, killing your friend in the process. We need proof, Naruto decided. And more information. The symbiote has memories, but they're fragmented after centuries of dormancy. A commotion outside indicated that Konoha shinobi were converging on their location. They had minutes at most before K's Taions would begin. Questions Naruto wasn't prepared to answer yet. I know where we can find more information, Felicia said quickly. There's a temple in the Land of Iron, built on the site where the first symbiote supposedly arrived on Earth. The Shiranui clan has protected its location for generations. Why would you share this with us? Hinata asked suspiciously. Felicia's smile returned, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Because I'd rather have the perfect host as an ally than a specimen. And because if the convergence is really beginning, we're all going to need friends in high places. The sounds of approaching shinobi grew louder. Naruto made a split-second decision. Hinata, go report what happened here, the attack, the collectors, everything except the symbiote. Say I'm pursuing the remaining attackers. Hinata hesitated. You want me to lie to the Hokage? Not lie, just omit certain details until we understand them better. Naruto took her hand. I need time to figure this out. To understand what I've become and what it means. After a moment's consideration, Hinata nodded. 3 days. Then I tell Kakashi-sama everything, whether you're back or not. Deal. Naruto turned to Felicia. And you're coming with me. If you know something about this symbiote, about the convergence, I want you where I can see you. The thief gave an elegant shrug. I was going to suggest the same thing. Though I usually prefer to be the one giving orders. Her gaze lingered on his face with undisguised interest. This partnership should be educational. She has knowledge, useful, but not trustworthy. Not yet. Naruto silently agreed with the symbiote's assessment. Let's go then. Shadow walking should get us past the perimeter guards. As Hinata left to intercept the approaching shinobi, Naruto extended his hand to Felicia. The symbiote partially manifested, dark tendrils extending from his fingers. This will feel strange, he warned her. Try not to scream. Felicia took his hand without hesitation, her green eyes alight with fascination. Honey, it takes a lot more than a little darkness to make me scream. The symbiote engulfed them both, They stepped into shadow just as the first Anbu operatives landed on the balcony. Within moments, they were moving across Konoha, cloaked in darkness, pursuing answers to questions far bigger than stolen scrolls or village security. As they traveled, Naruto felt the symbiote settling more comfortably within him, its consciousness twining with his own in a way that felt increasingly natural. Unlike the Nine Tails, which had always maintained a clear separation, Kurokami seemed to desire integration, a true symbiosis rather than a forced containment. Together we are more. Together we face what comes. The Venom Sage awakens to a breaking world. And in the depths of Naruto's mindscape, the nine-tailed fox watched with ancient eyes as a new power took shape, neither human, demon, nor alien. But something that transcended all three. A perfect host. A perfect bond. A perfect storm approaching. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2. Shadow and Substance. Excavation Journal. Entry 37. Location. Northern Caves, Land of Iron. Chief Archaeologist Mizuki Aoyama. The deeper chambers continue to yield remarkable findings. Today we uncovered a vast mural stretching across the entirety of the Cent. Raal Cavern, artwork clearly predating the Warring States period by centuries. The central figure appears repeatedly, a humanoid form wreathed in darkness with white, pupilless eyes. Surrounding figures bow in apparent worship. Most intriguing is the recurring spiral motif combined with a broken circle, the same symbol found on fragments throughout the 5 great nations, always in association with sea. Cataclysmic events are visitations from beyond the stars. Local folklore names this entity Kurokami, the Black God. I've encountered this designation in 3 separate cultures, each with remarkably similar descriptions despite no historical contact between them. The consistency suggests not merely cultural diffusion but perhaps observation of an actual phenomenon. Tomorrow we break through to the sealed inner sanctuary. The radiation readings are unusual. I've requested additional protective measures for the team. Naruto's breath crystallized in the frigid mountain air as he followed Felicia along a narrow ridge. Below them, clouds obscured the valley floor, creating the illusion of walking above an endless white sea. 3 days had passed since they'd left Konoha, traveling north toward the land of iron with increasing urgency. How much further? He asked, voice slightly muffled by the black scarf covering the lower half of his face, a necessary precaution against recognition. Though the harsh wind made it practical as well. Felicia paused at a seemingly arbitrary point along the ridge, her white hair whipping around her face. Unlike Naruto, she appeared completely unbothered by the cold, wearing only a light jacket over her customary bodysuit. "We're already here," she replied, gesturing to the sheer rock face beside them. The entrance is concealed by a perception-altering jutsu. Ancient, but effective. Naruto studied the rock wall, seeing nothing but weathered stone. "I don't sense any chakra barrier. That's what makes it brilliant." Felicia approached the wall, placing her palm against a specific point. "It doesn't use chakra, it uses something older." She speaks truth. The old ones used our essence, what you would call natural energy, but from beyond your world. Asterisk. The symbiote's voice had become a familiar presence in Naruto's mind over the past days. Though still distinct from his own thoughts, it no longer felt alien or intrusive, but rather like a constant companion offering insights and observations. "Kurokami says it's not chakra-based," Naruto confirmed. "Something about natural energy from another dimension." Felicia shot him an appreciative glance. "Your partner is well informed. The barrier responds to symbiote essence." She beckoned him closer. "Which means you're the key, not me." Stepping forward, Naruto placed his hand beside Felicia's on the rock face. Immediately, he felt the symbiote respond, flowing just beneath his skin with eager recognition. "Home. Sanctuary. Allow me." Asterisk. The familiar sensation of tea. He symbiote emerging washed over him, not the complete transformation into Kurokami, but a partial manifestation as the living darkness flowed from his hand into the stone. Black tendrils spread across the rock like ink in water, forming intricate patterns that glowed with subtle purple luminescence. As the patterns completed a complex spiral, the seemingly solid mountain face rippled and dissolved, revealing a tunnel leading deep into the mountain. Warm air carrying the scent of earth and something indefinably ancient flowed outward. "The temple awaits," Felicia said with a theatrical bow. "After you, sage." Naruto stepped through the opening, allowing the symbiote to recede back beneath his skin. The tunnel beyond was not crude or natural but perfectly formed, its walls smooth and a door Ned with carvings that seemed to shift in the shadows cast by their lanterns. "These symbols," Naruto observed, tracing one that resembled a spiral galaxy. "They're similar to Uzumaki clan markings." "Perhaps not coincidental," Felicia replied as they descended. "Many ancient clans may have derived their symbols from witnessing the first symbiotes. The Uzumaki were known for their sealing technique, and longevity, both traits that would interest beings seeking perfect hosts." The tunnel gradually widened, opening into a vast underground chamber that took Naruto's breath away. The ceiling soared at least 30 meters above them, carved to resemble a night sky filled with unfamiliar constellations. The floor was polished black stone that reflected their lantern light like still water. At the chamber's center stood a circular dais surrounded by 9 stone pillars, each carved with scenes depicting humans transformed by darkness. "Shrine of First Contact. Where our kind first touched your world." Asterisk. "It's incredible," Naruto murmured, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. "And apparently we're not the only ones who think so," Felicia observed, pointing to the far side of the chamber. Naruto followed her gesture and noticed signs of recent activity: excavation equipment, tables with research materials, sample containers carefully labeled and arranged. Everything a professional archaeological expedition would require, but strangely abandoned. "Someone beat us here," Naruto concluded, approaching the research station cautiously. "Recently too. This coffee is still warm." Felicia examined the materials with professional interest, quickly rifling through journals and notebooks. Konoha-sponsored expedition, led by Dr. Mizuki Aoyama, officially investigating pre-shinobi cultural artifacts. Her lips curved into a knowing smile. "Unofficially searching for evidence of extra-dimensional entities. Seems your Hokage has been keeping secrets." Naruto picked up a journal, flipping through detailed notes and sketches. This can't be a Konoha operation. Kakashi would have mentioned something this significant, especially after what happened with the collectors. Unless he doesn't know, Felicia countered. Not all branches of government share information freely, especially when it concerns potential weapons. Before Naruto could respond, the symbiote surged within him, suddenly alert. Others approach. Not human. Not entirely. Instinctively, Naruto extinguished their lantern and pulled Felicia behind one of the massive pillars. Something's coming, he whispered. The symbiote senses them. They waited in darkness, Naruto's enhanced senses picking up faint movements from one of the smaller tunnels branching off the main chamber. The footsteps were wrong somehow, too fluid, too rhythmic to be entirely human. 3 figures emerged into the chamber, moving with the same mechanical precision Naruto remembered from the collectors in Konoha. These, however, wore the distinctive flak jackets of Konoha Junin, though their movements betrayed their true nature. Behind them came a 4th figure, fully human and familiar enough to make Naruto tense with surprise. Danzo, he breathed, barely audible. But that's impossible, he died during the 5-cage summit. Felicia's eyes narrowed as she observed the elderly man with the bandaged face and arm. Are you certain? Because he looks remarkably spry for a corpse. The man who resembled Danzo approached the central dais, his visible eye scanning the chamber with calculated intensity. Secure the perimeter, he commanded the 3 false Junin. Our instruments detected a breach in the outer barrier. We are not alone. As the disguised collectors began methodically searching the chamber, Naruto assessed their options. The entrance they'd used was now blocked. Fighting in this enclosed space would be difficult, especially if he wanted to preserve the archaeological evidence. And most importantly, he needed to understand what a supposedly dead Konoha elder was doing consorting with alien entities. We need a distraction, Felicia whispered, already reaching into her pouch. Let me. Darkness is our domain. Understanding the symbiote's intention, Naruto nodded. Cover your eyes, he warned Felicia. The symbiote surged outward, not transforming Naruto completely but extending from him in all directions, plunging the chamber into absolute darkness as it absorbed all available light. Even the emergency lights the false Junin activated were immediately swallowed by the perfect blackness. In this darkness, only Naruto could see, the symbiote translating sensory information directly to his brain. He moved silently, guiding Felicia toward one of the side tunnels. While the collectors and the Danzo impersonator scrambled to respond. Symbiote detected, one of the collectors announced, its voice dropping all pretense of humanity. Class A integration confirmed. Priority target located. Capture. Do not kill, the Danzo figure ordered. We need the host intact for the convergence. Naruto froze at those words. The convergence again. The mysterious event it seemed to connect everything from the symbiote's arrival on Earth to the current crisis. Whatever it was, it clearly involved him now. As they reached the tunnel entrance, Naruto allowed the symbiote to partially encase them both, using its shadow-walking ability to transport them deeper into the tunnel network. They emerged several hundred meters away in a smaller chamber filled with storage crates and research equipment. Well, that was bracing, Felicia commented, seemingly unfazed by their narrow escape. Though I have questions about why you're running from a dead man. That wasn't Danzo, Naruto replied, allowing the symbiote to recede. Or at least, not entirely. Danzo Shimura was a Konoha elder with extreme views on village security. He died during the conflict that preceded the Fourth Shinobi War. Clearly someone forgot to tell him that. Felicia began examining the crates around them. More interesting is why the collectors are disguising themselves as Konoha Shinobi and taking orders from him, or whatever is wearing his face. Naruto moved to help her search, looking for anything that might explain what they'd witnessed. The symbiote says the collectors aren't entirely artificial. They're transformed beings from another dimension, repurposed to serve the convergence. Repurposed by whom? Felicia asked, breaking open a crate labeled, classified, spectral analysis. It doesn't know, Naruto admitted. The symbiote's memories from before arriving on Earth are fragmented. It remembers fleeing a collapsing reality, seeking hosts that could sustain it. But little about what caused the collapse in the first place. Truth. Our kind were prey as much as predators. Hunted across realities. Memory of hunters fades with each bond, each transfer. F. Alicia lifted a strange device from the crate. Something like a telescope crossed with a compass, its mechanisms unlike any technology Naruto had seen in the Five Nations. Well, looks like archaeologists were tracking more than just ancient history. She handed the device to Naruto, who turned it over carefully. It was unexpectedly light, made from a metal that felt almost alive beneath his fingers. The symbiote reacted to it instantly, a sensation like recognition flowing through their shared consciousness. Convergence detector. Measures thinning between dimensional walls. Ancient tech from the first collapse. It's for tracking where dimensions are leaking into each other, Naruto translated, watching as the device's needle swung erratically before settling on a direction pointing deeper into the mountain. And it's picking up something nearby. Felicia's expression turned serious. If there's an active breach, we need to find the research team. They might have MB led into something they weren't prepared for. Following the detector's guidance, they navigated deeper into the tunnel network, eventually reaching a massive natural cavern where the archaeological excavation had clearly been focused. Scaffolding stretched up along one wall where an enormous mural had been partially uncovered, the one described in the journal Naruto had read earlier. The excavation equipment lay abandoned, some tools still embedded in the rock as if their users had simply vanished mid-task. More concerning were the strange distortions in the air throughout the cavern, where reality seemed to ripple and waver like heat mirages. Dimensional instability, Felicia said quietly. Just like the legends described. Reality becoming thin enough to see through. Naruto approached one of the distortions cautiously. Through it, he could glimpse what appeared to be the same cavern but different. The colors were wrong, the physics slightly altered. In that other version, the excavation equipment was smashed and scattered, and dark substances that might have been bloodstains covered the walls. Echo reality. Possibility space where different choices were made. Different outcomes occurred. It's like another timeline, Naruto murmured. One where something went very wrong. As they explored further, they discovered the expedition's main research area, Here detailed notes and findings had been meticulously catalogued. Felicia immediately began gathering the most significant documents while Naruto examined the mural more closely. The central figure, Yorokami, was depicted as both savior and destroyer, in some scenes healing the wounded or fighting alongside humans against monstrous entities, in others consuming entire villages in darkness. Most intriguing was a recurring image of the symbiote merging with a host who already contained another entity, represented by 9 flame-like tails. The perfect host, Naruto said, touching the ancient painting. They knew about this possibility centuries ago. Not prediction. Memory. The last perfect host lived when this was painted. A Jinchuriki like you. The unity was powerful but unstable. Balance was never achieved. What happened to them? Madness. Power without wisdom. The 9 Tails was younger then, wilder. It fought our influence rather than accepting partnership. The host was torn between 2 beings battling for control. The implications were clear. Naruto's situation was precarious. If the 9 Tails and the symbiote couldn't coexist harmoniously within him, he might suffer same fate as this ancient predecessor. I need to speak with the fox, Naruto decided. Directly, not just through impressions. And I need someone who understands how minds connect. Felicia looked up from the documents she was examining. You're thinking of returning to Konoha. Temporarily, Naruto confirmed. There's someone there who can help. A genjutsu specialist who once helped me communicate with the 9 Tails more effectively. If anyone can facilitate a 3-way conversation between me, Kurokami, and the fox, it's her. Dangerous, Felicia warned. If the false Danzo and the collectors are somehow connected to Konoha, you could be walking into a trap. I won't be alone, Naruto replied, the plan forming in his mind. The symbiote can conceal me, and I have allies I trust completely. He thought of Hinata, who had promised to keep his secret for 3 days, a deadline that had just expired. Besides, we need to warn the Hokage about what's happening. These dimensional breaches are appearing worldwide. If the detector is accurate. Felicia considered this, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, But I'm not walking into the heart of a shinobi village that would happily imprison me for my numerous crimes. I'll continue investigating from outside. Fair enough. Naruto gathered the most crucial research materials. We should leave before our dead Konoha elder and his collector friends return. As they prepared to depart, the symbiote detector suddenly spiked, its needle spinning wildly before pointing directly at the largest mural. The distortions in the air intensified, converging on the painted figure of Kurokami until the wall itself seemed to ripple and breathe. Breach widening. Reality thinning. Move. Asterisk. The warning came just as the mural exploded outward. Stone fragments flying across the cavern as something pushed through from the other side. Naruto instinctively transformed, the symbiote enveloping him completely as he shielded Felicia from the debris. When the dust settled, a figure stood where the mural had been, humanoid but clearly not human. Its body was a shifting mass of darkness similar to the symbiote but shot through with veins of crimson energy that pulsed like blood vessels. Where a face should have been, it had only a swirling vortex of black and red. Perfect host, it rasped, the voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. The convergence approaches. You are required. Harvester. Hunter of our kind. Flee. Asterisk. The symbiote's fear flooded through their bond, an emotion Naruto had never felt from it before. Without hesitation, he gathered Felicia against him and plunged into the nearest shadow, the symbiote extending their shadow-walking ability to its limit. They emerged outside the mountain, daylight momentarily blinding after the darkness of the cavern. Without pausing, Naruto continued moving, carrying Felicia as he leapt from the ridge into the cloud layer below, the symbiote forming wing-like structures to control their descent. What was that thing? Felicia demanded when they finally stopped on a forested slope several kilometers from the temple entrance. The symbiote calls it a harvester, Naruto replied, still processing the creature's appearance and the symbiote's intense reaction. Apparently they hunt symbiotes across dimensions. And it said I'm required for the convergence. Not good, Felicia muttered, brushing debris from her clothing. If they can punch through dimensional walls like that, nowhere is truly safe. She looked up at Naruto, her expression unusually solemn. Your plan to return to Konoha just became more urgent. If these breaches are appearing worldwide, every hidden village needs to prepare. Naruto nodded, his resolve hardening. We'll separate here. You continue gathering information about the temple and the excavation team. I'll return to Konoha and consult with Kurenai about stabilizing my connection with both the symbiote and the Nine Tails. Try not to get dissected by your own people, Felicia said, her usual playfulness returning. I'd hate to lose such an interesting research subject. Despite the gravity of their situation, Naruto found himself smiling. I'm touched by your concern. Purely professional interest, I assure you. The look in her eyes, however, suggested otherwise. 3 days. Meet me at the waypoint we discussed if things go smoothly in Konoha. If not, she shrugged, I'll probably have to rescue you in some daring and impressive manner. With that, she was gone, disappearing into the forest with the preternatural stealth that had earned her the Black Cat moniker. Naruto watched her go, sensing the symbiote's mixed feelings about their temporary ally. She knows more than she reveals. But her fear of the harvesters is genuine. For now, our interests align. Asterisk. Agreed, Naruto murmured. Now, let's go home and have a long overdue conversation with our other roommate. Excavation Journal. Entry 41. Location. Northern Caves. Land of Iron. Chief Archaeologist Mizuki Aoyama. Breakthrough. The inner sanctuary contained exactly what we theorized, a convergence point where the barrier between dimensions is naturally thinner. The readings are off the charts, confirming that these locations exist worldwide at precise geometric intervals. More importantly, we've discovered evidence that the ancient people here learned to stabilize these points through a combination of symbiote essence and specialized sealing techniques remarkably similar to those used by the Uzumaki clan. Asterisk. Most significant is the codex we've recovered, detailing the perfect host phenomenon. According to these records, when a symbiote bonds with a Jinchuriki, the resulting entity can either stabilize dimensional breaches or tear them wide open, depending on the harmony achieved between host, Biju, and symbiote. Asterisk. I've dispatched our findings to Commander D as instructed, though I've kept certain data ILS regarding the perfect host requirements in a separate, encrypted journal. Something about this operation feels increasingly concerning. Several team members have reported seeing reflections of themselves in the deeper chambers, versions from other timelines where different choices were made. Most disturbingly, some have reported seeing their own deaths. Asterisk. Tomorrow we attempt to activate the ancient stabilization array. May the gods, or whatever exists beyond our reality, grant us wisdom. Asterisk. Konoha's walls appeared on the horizon as dawn broke 3 days later. Naruto had traveled without stopping, using the symbiote's enhanced endurance to maintain a punishing pace. He approached cautiously, staying within the forest canopy as he observed the village's security patterns. Everything appeared normal. Standard patrol rotations, typical checkpoint procedures, but after encountering the false Junin at the temple, Naruto couldn't discount the possibility of infiltration at any level. He needed to reach Kurenai without alerting potential enemies to his return. The female with pale eyes. She can verify identities with her visual prowess. She kept our secret before. Asterisk. Hinata. Naruto agreed, but I need to reach her without being seen. The symbiote's solution was elegant. Rather than attempting a covert entry through Konoha's heavily guarded perimeter, they would use the underground waterways that connected to the Hyuga compound's ornamental ponds, a path few would think to monitor and fewer still could navigate in darkness. Slipping into a stream several kilometers from the village, Naruto allowed the symbiote to encase him completely. Underwater, Kurokami's form was perfectly adapted, streamlined, with enhanced vision that pierced the murky depths and gills that extracted oxygen directly from the water. They traveled through the current until reaching the filtration systems that purified water entering the village. Bypassing these required precision timing as Kurokami slipped between rotating mechanisms designed to catch debris. Once inside the village's water network, they navigated the complex system of pipes and channels until reaching the decorative waterways of the Hyuga district. Emerging silently from a pond in a secluded corner of the Hyuga Gardens shortly after midnight, Kurokami melted back into Naruto's human form. The symbiote remained partially active, enhancing his senses to detect any observers while dampening the sound of his movement across the immaculately maintained grounds. Hinata's quarters were located in the east wing of the main house, information Naruto had gleaned during previous visits as her friend and teammate. Her window was identifiable by the small pot of lavender growing on the sill, a personal touch in the otherwise austere Hyuga aesthetic. She approaches from behind. Asterisk. The warning came just as Naruto sensed movement. He turned slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm, to find Hinata standing 10 meters away. Her Byakugan active and stance cautious. I felt your chakra signature the moment you entered the compound, she said quietly. Though it's different now. Layered. It's still me, Hinata, Naruto assured her, keeping his voice low. Just with a passenger. She approached carefully, her dujutsu examining him thoroughly. The symbiote has integrated further with your chakra network, and the Nine Tails chakra is responding differently, adapting rather than resisting. That's actually why I'm here, Naruto explained. I need to speak with both entities directly, to establish a proper balance. I was hoping Kurenai-sensei could help. Hinata's eyes softened as she deactivated her Byakugan. You missed my deadline. I told Kakashi-sama everything yesterday. Naruto tensed. Everything I knew then, she clarified. Which was considerably less than what I'm seeing now. The symbiote has grown within you. She sees clearly. No deception possible with those eyes. Asterisk. Did Kakashi order my arrest? Naruto asked bluntly. To his surprise, Hinata smiled slightly. No, he said, and I quote, Naruto collecting strange entities is practically a hobby at this point. Let's see what he learns before panicking. Relief washed through Naruto. Kakashi's pragmatic approach might give him the time he needed to understand the symbiote fully before facing official scrutiny. But, Hinata continued more seriously, there have been developments while you were away. Strange phenomena reported across all 5 nations. Tsunade-sama has been recalled to examine medical cases of people changing. And there was an attack on the Hokage Tower archives again, more historical documents taken, but this time with casualties. The implications were clear. the dimensional instabilities were accelerating, and the collectors were growing more aggressive in their search for information. I need to see Kurenai, Naruto repeated with greater urgency. Tonight, if possible. Hinata nodded. She's been expecting you, actually. After I spoke with Kakashi-sama, he consulted her about potential approaches to your situation. She gestured for him to follow. I'll take you to her now. The compound's side exit will avoid the main streets. They moved silently through the Hyuga gardens, Hinata's Byakugan ensuring they encountered no one. As they walked, Naruto noticed subtle changes in her demeanor, a new confidence in her movements, a directness in her gaze that had once been rare. You've changed too, he observed. Not just in how you see me. Hinata glanced at him, a hint of pride in her expression. I've been working with Tsunade-sama on medical applications of the gentle fist. Focusing chakra for healing instead of harm requires similar precision but different intent. It's opened new possibilities for me beyond clan expectations. That's amazing, Hinata. Naruto's admiration was genuine. He'd always known she was capable of more than the rigid Hyuga traditions allowed. A slight blush colored her cheeks at his praise, but her composure remained intact. The research has proven useful for understanding your condition as well. The Symbiote's interaction with your chakra network resembles certain medical techniques, redirecting energy flows, reinforcing weakened pathways. It's not parasitic as some feared, it's genuinely symbiotic. She understands. Rare wisdom in one so young. Asterisk. They exited the compound through a small garden gate, entering Konoha's quiet streets. Even at this late hour, Naruto could sense the village's subtle rhythm, Anbu guards moving across rooftops, late shift workers returning home, the occasional civilian couple enjoying the peaceful night. It feels strange, he admitted as they walked. Being back but hiding, like I'm an intruder in my own home. Hinata's expression softened with understanding. You're not an intruder, you're just evolving. The village will need time to adjust, as you have. Her words carried unexpected comfort. Throughout his life, Naruto had fought for acceptance, first as a Jinchuriki, then as a shinobi worthy of respect. Now he faced yet another transformation that set him apart, another potential barrier between himself and the community he cherished. They reached Kurenai's apartment building without incident. Unlike the traditional Hyuga compound, this was a modern structure designed for Junin with small families, secure but comfortable, with rooftop gardens and reinforced walls. Hinata led him not to the front entrance but to a side door accessible from a small alleyway. Kurenai-sensei suggested this approach. Her apartment has privacy seals active at all times, a necessity when working with experimental genjutsu. The door opened before they could knock, revealing Kurenai Yuhi in casual attire rather than her usual mission gear. Her crimson eyes, unusual even among shinobi, assessed Naruto with professional interest. Right on time, she said, stepping aside to let them enter. I sensed your approach. Your chakra signature is distinctive now. Is that a polite way of saying alarmingly different? Naruto asked with a wry smile. Kurenai's lips curved slightly. Let's say, intriguingly complex. Instead, she led them through a short hallway into a spacious living area where ceiling formulas glowed faintly along the walls. Kakashi briefed me on what Hinata reported. I've been preparing appropriate techniques since then. The room had been arranged for their purpose, furniture pushed aside to create an open space in the center. An intricate mandala had been painted on the floor. Candles at specific points created a pattern of light and shadow that seemed to pulse with subtle energy. This is a modified mind synchronization technique, Kurenai explained, gesturing to the mandala. Originally developed for interrogation of subjects with multiple personalities, I've adapted it for your unique situation. It should allow conscious, controlled communication between all three entities sharing your mindscape. Naruto approached the mandala cautiously, feeling the symbiote's curious response to the patterns. Is it safe? As safe as allowing three powerful consciousness to interact can be, Kurenai replied honestly. The technique doesn't force anything. It simply creates a shared mental space where communication becomes possible. What happens there depends entirely on the participants. Acceptable risk. We must achieve balance or risk destruction when the convergence intensifies. Asterisk. The symbiote agrees, Naruto translated. And reaching the nine tails directly has always been challenging. This could help. Kurenai nodded. Sit in the center. Hinata will monitor your chakra flow from outside the mandala. I'll guide the process using genjutsu to stabilize the shared mental environment. As Naruto took his position, cross-legged at the mandala's center, he noticed Hinata arranging monitoring equipment. And nearby, medical sensors borrowed from the hospital, presumably. These will track your vital signs, she explained. If anything appears dangerous, we can extract you immediately. Kurenai knelt across from Naruto, her crimson eyes intense in the candlelight. This process requires absolute honesty, not just with us, but with yourself. Are you prepared for that? The question carried weight beyond the immediate situation. Naruto had always prided himself on his straightforward nature, but recent events had forced him to conceal, to hide, to question. The symbiote had shown him aspects of himself he'd never fully acknowledged. Desires for power, for acceptance, for connection that went beyond his carefully maintained optimism. I'm ready, he said finally. Whatever I discover about myself or them. Kurenai nodded, satisfied with his sincerity. Then we begin. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Feel the boundaries between yourself and the entities within you. Not as barriers but as doorways. As Naruto followed her instructions, he became acutely aware of the symbiote's presence, not just as a voice or sensation but as a complex consciousness intertwined with his own. Beyond that, in a deeper chamber of his mindscape, the familiar ancient presence of the Nine Tails waited, observing, assessing, uncharacteristically patient. Kurenai's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere as her genjutsu took effect. I am creating a neutral space where all can speak equally. Neither the mental prison of the Nine Tails nor the fluid domain of the symbiote, but a new construction where balance is possible. The transition was seamless. One moment Naruto was sitting in Kurenai's apartment. The next, he stood in a vast circular chamber. The walls shifted constantly between three states, sometimes appearing as the familiar flooded corridors of the Nine Tails seal, sometimes as an organic, web-like structure that pulsed with the symbiote's essence, and Summit. Ims as a neutral space of soft light that must have been Kurenai's creation. Before him stood two figures. One was the familiar towering form of the nine-tailed fox, its crimson eyes watching him with ancient wisdom and carefully contained power. The other was new, a humanoid figure composed of living darkness, with white eyes similar to Naruto's appearance when fully transformed, but with a more defined structure that suggested intelligence and individuality separate from their bonded state. Kurama, Naruto acknowledged the fox, using its true name rather than its title. Then, turning to the other figure, Kurokami. You've brought us together intentionally, ***, Kurama observed, its voice rumbling through the shared mindscape. Bold, considering our last perfect host ended rather messily. The symbiote's form rippled with something like indignation. The previous arrangement failed because you fought our presence rather than embracing partnership. You were younger then, more arrogant. And you were more hungry, ***, Kurama countered. More desperate after your long journey between worlds. Neither of us was ready for sharing. Naruto stepped between them, sensing the ancient tension. That was then. We face different circumstances now. The convergence threatens everyone, including both of you. Both entities turned their attention to him, and Naruto felt the weight of their combined awareness. One born from the primal chakra of his world, the other a refugee from a reality now lost to time. Both ancient, both powerful, both now dependent on him for continued existence. Explain your proposal, host, ***, Kurokami requested, its voice like velvet darkness. What balance do you envision? True symbiosis, Naruto replied simply. Not dominance by any one consciousness, but partnership. Kurama provides chakra and elemental affinity. You provide adaptive abilities and dimensional awareness. I provide the moral compass and decision-making. Kurama's tail swayed thoughtfully. Ambitious. The boy always aims high. Despite the dismissive words, Naruto sensed approval from the ancient Biju. What guarantee do we have that you won't sacrifice one for the other when conflict arises? Kurokami questioned. When our needs diverge. It was a fair question. Naruto considered it carefully before answering. Look at my history with Kurama, he finally said. We began as reluctant partners at best, enemies at worst. Over time, we developed respect, then trust, then genuine alliance. I never sought to dominate or suppress him, Then when others advised controlling the Nine Tails through force. Kurama nodded, acknowledging the truth of this assessment. With you, Naruto continued, addressing Kurokami, we've had less time together. But the principle remains the same. I haven't attempted to suppress your consciousness or abilities. I've listened to your guidance, incorporated your knowledge. We're learning each other's boundaries. The symbiote's form shifted thoughtfully, tendrils of darkness rippling around it like contemplative fingers. Your pattern with the fox suggests trustworthiness. But the convergence will test all bonds. When realities bleed together, loyalties fracture. Identity itself becomes fluid. All the more reason for us to establish clear understanding now, Naruto argued. Together, we might be able to address the convergence. Divided, we're vulnerable to those hunting us, the collectors, the harvesters, whoever is wearing Danzo's face. Kurama's eyes narrowed at this last reference. Danzo lives. That is concerning. His ambitions were never limited to one lifetime. We don't know if it's really him or something using his appearance, Naruto clarified. But whatever it is, it's working with entities from beyond our dimension and has specific interest in us as a perfect host. The shared mental space rippled as both entities processed this information. Kurama and Kurokami exchanged a look that suggested communication beyond Naruto's perception, ancient beings recognizing a common threat. A trial period, Kurama finally proposed. True partnership, with clear boundaries. My chakra remains mine to control, but available when needed. The symbiote maintains its distinct consciousness but defers to the host's ethical framework. Acceptable, Kurokami agreed. With the addition that knowledge sharing becomes multidirectional. I will provide information about the convergence and dimensional realities. In return, I gain access to your combined experiences of this world. Naruto felt a weight lifting that he hadn't realized he was carrying. The prospect of internal harmony after days of navigating the subtle tensions between his two passengers offered profound relief. Then we have an agreement, he said, extending his hands to both entities, a physical representation of the balance they were establishing. Kurama placed 1 meter, Asave paw over Naruto's right hand while Kurokami extended a tendril of darkness to envelop his left. As they connected, energy surged through the shared mindscape, orange-red chakra from Kurama flowing in spiraling patterns. Midnight black essence from Kurokami weaving between the chakra streams, and Naruto's own blue-white energy providing structure and direction to the merger. The sensation was unlike anything Naruto had experienced, not the burning power of the Nine Tails chakra mode, nor the fluid adaptability of the symbiote transformation, but something new. Balanced, harmonious. When the energy settled, Naruto found himself changed within the mindscape. His appearance now incorporated elements of both entities, his traditional orange and black attire now threaded with living shadow. That shifted and moved with his thoughts, while Kurama's chakra manifested as subtle luminescence beneath his skin. The Venom Sage, Kurama observed with something like approval. Neither human, Biju, nor symbiote. But something new. The perfect host, Kurokami agreed. But perfection requires constant adjustment, constant communication. This is merely the beginning. Before Naruto could respond, the mindscape rippled violently. External sensation intruded. Hinata's voice, urgent and concerned. His vital signs are spiking. Something's wrong. Kurenai's voice followed. Naruto, if you can hear me. We need to end the session. There's something happening outside. Some kind of disturbance in the village. The shared mindscape began to dissolve as Naruto's consciousness was pulled back toward physical reality. As the connection faded, both Kurama and Kurokami imparted final thoughts. Be cautious, Kit. True balance is hard won and easily lost. Reality thins. The barriers weaken. What hunts us approaches. Then Naruto was gasping, eyes flying open as he returned fully to Kurenai's apartment. The candles had extinguished, and emergency lights bathed the room in harsh blue illumination. Outside, alarms sounded throughout the village. What's happening? He demanded, rising shakily to his feet. Kurenai moved to the window, her expression grim. Own kind of breach in the eastern sector. Reports of reality distortions and unknown entities. The same phenomena you described from the temple. Hinata joined her, Byakugan active. I can see them. Spaces where the world seems to fold in on itself. And things moving through. Not human. Not animal either. Naruto felt both the symbiote and Kurama respond to the threat, their newly harmonized energies rising in preparation. The convergence is accelerating, he said, the knowledge coming partly from himself and partly from Kurokami's ancient memories. The dimensional barriers are weakening faster than we anticipated. What does that mean for Konoha? For our world? Kurenai asked, her crimson eyes reflecting the emergency lights. It means we're running out of time, Naruto answered grimly. And I need to show Kakashi exactly what we're dealing with. No more secrets, no more hiding. As he spoke, the symbiote flowed outward, transforming him partially, not the full Kurokami form, but a new configuration that incorporated elements of both the symbiote's darkness and Kurama's chakra. His clothing became living shadow, rippling with suppressed power, while his eyes shifted between their natural blue and the symbiote's pure white, pupils occasionally flashing crimson with the Nine Tails influence. Hinata and Kurenai watched the transformation with matching expressions of fascination and concern. The balance you achieved in there, Kurenai observed. It's manifesting physically. We reached an understanding, Naruto confirmed. But it's new, untested. I don't know how it will hold under pressure. Then let's find out, Hinata said with unexpected determination. Konoha is under attack. If ever there was a time to test new abilities, it's now. Kurenai nodded agreement. I'll report to the Hokage that you've returned. He'll want you at the breach site if these entities are connected to the symbiote. As they prepared to move out, Naruto felt a new confidence flowing through him. Not the symbiote's predatory assurance nor Kurama's ancient power, but a harmony of all three consciousness working in concert. Whatever came through the dimensional breaches, they would face it together. We are ready. The hunt begins. ****. Excavation Journal. Final entry. Location. Northern Caves, Land of Iron. Chief Archaeologist Mizuki Aoyama. Catastrophe. E-stabilization array activated successfully, but instead of sealing the dimensional breach, it widened it. Something came through. Multiple somethings. The team is. I can't bring myself to describe what happened to them. I've sealed the inner chambers using traditional barriers, but they won't hold for long. The entities that emerged are not bound by our physical laws. They pass through solid matter. Exist partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They spoke only once, in perfect unison. The perfect host is awakened. The convergence proceeds as designed. All realities will be harvested. I'm leaving this journal where it might be found. The other records have been destroyed to prevent the array's replication. If you're reading this, know that similar breaches will appear at the pattern points marked on the enclosed map. Each corresponds to an ancient site where the dimensional barriers were already thin. Most crucially, do not trust those who claim to contain the breaches through technology or military force. The convergence cannot be stopped by conventional means. The ancient texts speak of only one possibility. A perfect symbiosis between worlds, embodied in the Venom Sage. May whatever gods exist in any dimension have mercy on us all. The journal ends here. Blood stains obscure the final paragraphs. Attached is a map showing dimensional weak points across the 5 great nations, with Konoha marked as a primary convergence point. The eastern sector of Konoha had transformed into something from a nightmare. Reality itself seemed unstable. Buildings flickered between their normal appearance and twisted, blackened versions of themselves. The air shimmered with distortions through which glimpses of other places, other times could be seen. Naruto moved through the chaos with Hinata and Kurenai flanking him, their combined skills creating an effective team. Civilians were being evacuated by Chunin squads, while Junin established a perimeter around the largest distortion, a swirling vortex of energy that had appeared directly above the Hokage monument. They found Kakashi coordinating the response from a command post near the academy, which had been converted to an emergency shelter. The 6th Hokage showed no surprise when Naruto approached in his partially transformed state. "Welcome back," Kakashi said with his characteristic calm. "I see you've been making new friends." "Not exactly new," Naruto replied. The symbiote has been dormant within the 9 tails for centuries. My near-death experience awakened it. Kakashi's exposed eye assessed Naruto's transformed appearance. And this partnership is consensual. On all sides. Yes, Naruto confirmed. We've established a balance. The symbiote, Kurama, and I are working together now. Good, Kakashi said simply. Because we could use that cooperation at the moment. He gestured toward the vortex above the monument. That appeared approximately 40 minutes ago. Shortly after, these emerged. He indicated a containment field where Anbu guards surrounded what appeared to be fragments of living shadow, similar to the symbiote in composition but lacking defined form or apparent intelligence. They writhed against the barriers, occasionally taking shapes reminiscent of animals or humans before dissolving back into amorphous darkness. Proto-symbiotes, Naruto identified immediately. The knowledge coming from Kurokami. Immature forms seeking hosts. They're drawn to strong chakra signatures. Like beacons in a storm, Kakashi mused. Which makes Konoha, with its high concentration of powerful shinobi, a primary target. Naruto finished grimly. These are just the beginning. The convergence is accelerating. Dimensional barriers thinning worldwide. Kurenai stepped forward. The synchronization technique revealed significant information. The symbiote species originally came to Earth fleeing a similar event in their home dimension. They've encountered this before, and apparently survived it, Kakashi noted. Which gives us a starting point. What worked last time? Naruto closed his eyes briefly, consulting both Kurama and Kurokami. Stabilization points, he answered. Ancient sites where symbiotes and humans worked together to reinforce reality at weak points. The temple we investigated in the Land of Iron was one such site. We have records of similar locations throughout the 5 nations, Hinata added, producing the map they'd recovered from the temple. Each marking indicates a potential breach point, and a potential stabilization site. Kakashi examined the map with sharp interest. Some of these correspond to locations where we've already received reports of anomalies. Wave Country, the ruins near Suna, the northern mountains of Cloud Country. We need to secure them all, Naruto said. Establish stabilization arrays at each point before the breaches widen beyond control. An international effort, then, Kakashi concluded. I'll contact the other cage immediately. He turned back to Naruto. But first, I need you to address our immediate problem. Those proto-symbiotes will eventually break containment. And the vortex appears to be growing. Naruto nodded, understanding what was being asked. It was time to demonstrate exactly what the Venom Sage could do, not just to Kakashi, but to Konoha and eventually the 5 nations. No more hiding, no more secrets. I'll handle it, he promised. But I'll need space to work. And understanding afterward. Kakashi's eye crinkled slightly, the closest ing to a smile his masked face could show. You've never lacked for dramatic entrances, Naruto. I suspect this won't be an exception. With that tacit permission, Naruto moved toward the containment area. Feeling the proto-symbiotes respond to his presence, their formless bodies stretching toward him with instinctive recognition. They sense us. The perfect bond. They seek similar completion. Asterisk. Can we help them? Naruto asked internally. Guide them to suitable hosts. Not yet formed enough for proper bonding. Too unstable, but we can reintegrate them. Absorb their essence, their knowledge. Asterisk. The symbiote's suggestion made sense. These fragments weren't developed enough to form independent bonds, but their collective experience might provide valuable information about the convergence and the dimensional breaches. Turning to the Anbu guards, Naruto spoke with the combined authority of his own position as a war hero and the ancient presence of his symbiote partner. Lower the containment field. I can absorb these entities safely. The guards looked to Kakashi, who nodded permission. As the barrier dropped, the proto-symbiotes surged toward Naruto like liquid shadow, drawn to the perfect symbiosis he represented. Rather than resisting, he opened himself to them, allowing his symbiote to extend outward, embracing the fragments. The sensation was strange but not unpleasant, absorbing knowledge directly through his skin. Images, impressions, and fragments of memory flowed into his consciousness as Kurokami reintegrated its lesser kin. When the process completed moments later, Naruto stood unchanged externally, but internally richer with understanding. The proto-symbiotes had traveled through the dimensional breach recently, carrying impressions of what lay beyond. A fracturing multiverse where realities collided and merged in chaotic patterns. They came from the breach, he reported to Kakashi. And they won't be the last. Something is deliberately widening He's convergence points from the other side. Kakashi's expression darkened. To what end? Harvesting. Naruto replied, the word carrying ominous weight. Collecting energy released during dimensional collapse. It's happened before. Not just to the symbiote's home dimension, but to countless others. Before Kakashi could respond, the vortex above the monument pulsed violently, expanding outward. In a shock wave of energy that rippled through the village. Buildings distorted temporarily as the wave passed, people freezing in place for microseconds before snapping back to normal movement. That's new, Kakashi observed with characteristic understatement. Naruto studied the vortex, feeling both Kurama and Kurokami analyzing the phenomenon through their shared senses. It's a time distortion, he concluded. The convergence doesn't just blend spaces but time streams as well. That pulse temporarily synchronized everyone to a slightly different temporal flow. Can you close it? Kurenai asked directly. Naruto considered the question, assessing his newly balanced abilities. Not alone. I need a focusing point. Something to channel and direct the combined energies of Symbiote, Biju, and Sage Chakra. Hinata stepped forward without hesitation. The Hyuga clan maintains ancient focusing crystals used for chakra purification. They might serve your purpose. Perfect, Naruto agreed. Kurenai-sensei, I'll need your genjutsu expertise as well, to create a mental framework for the energy pattern. The three of us should be able to at least stabilize this breach temporarily. As Hinata departed to retrieve the crystals, Kakashi pulled Naruto aside. There's something else you should know. While you were away, we had another visitor looking for you, a Kumo intelligence operative named Samui. She brought reports of similar phenomena in Lightning Country and requested your specific assistance. Why me? Naruto asked, though he suspected the answer. She mentioned historical records describing a shadow sage, who once sealed dimensional rifts near Kumo centuries ago. Sound familiar? The previous perfect host traveled extensively before the madness took them. Left stabilization arrays across the continent. Asterisk. The previous perfect host, Naruto confirmed. Where is she now? Observing our containment efforts on the west side, Kakashi replied. I'd suggest connecting with her after addressing our immediate vortex problem. Cloud's cooperation will be essential if these breaches are appearing worldwide. Naruto nodded agreement, then turned his attention back to the swirling dimensional tear above the village. As he studied it, he noticed something concerning. Humanoid shapes moving within the vortex, watching Konoha with predatory interest. Collectors. Preparing to emerge. We must act quickly. Asterisk. Hinata returned with the focusing crystals. 3 perfectly clear gemstones the size of a fist, each thrumming with latent energy. Kurenai joined them, having prepared a genjutsu framework based on the stabilization patterns Naruto had described. The crystals must be placed at precise intervals around the breach, Naruto explained, drawing on Kurokami's ancient knowledge. They'll create a triangulation field that I can then fill with stabilizing energy. They moved to the Hokage monument, positioning the crystals on 3 different heads, those of the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Hokage. Creating a perfect triangle beneath the swirling vortex. As Hinata placed the final crystal, Kurenai began her genjutsu, weaving complex patterns in the air that becca me visible as glowing blue lines connecting the crystals. Now, Naruto, she called as the genjutsu framework solidified. Naruto took a position at the center of the triangle, directly beneath the vortex's heart. Drawing on the perfect balance he'd achieved with Kurama and Kurokami, he allowed transformation to overtake him completely, but not into the purely symbiotic form of Kurokami. This TRANS formation incorporated elements of all 3 aspects of his being. The living darkness of the symbiote formed the foundation, creating a sleek, powerful physique with the characteristic white eyes and fluid movement. Overlaying this, Kurama's chakra manifested as pulsing orange-red energy that flowed like fire across the darkness, taking the shape of 9 tails extending from Naruto's lower back. Finally, Naruto's own Sage Chakra added a 3rd dimension, areas of perfect stillness within the dynamic energy, points of natural balance that stabilized and directed the immense power. The Venom's age in full manifestation was a sight that left even veteran shinobi staring in awe. a perfect synthesis of human determination, Biju power, and symbiote adaptability. Neither monstrous nor angelic, something transcending standard categories, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Raising his hands toward the vortex, Naruto began channeling energy upward. Tendrils of darkness extended from his body, weaving between the crystal points and absorbing the genjutsu framework Kurenai had created. As the pattern solidified, Kurama's chakra flowed along the tendrils, adding raw power to precision. Finally, Sage chakra provided the stabilizing influence, preventing the energies from tearing reality further. The vortex responded to his efforts, first resisting, contracting violently as if in pain, then gradually stabilizing as the triangulation field took effect. The swirling energies slowed, the glimpses of other dimensions becoming less frequent, the humanoid figures within retreating from the boundaries. Maintaining the field required immense concentration. Naruto felt the strain of balancing three distinct energy types simultaneously, each with their own properties and intentions. Sweat beaded on his skin despite the symbiote's protection, and his muscles trembled with effort. Nearly complete. One final push. With a roar that combined his human voice with both Kurama's bestial power and Kurokami's resonant depth. Naruto channeled a final surge of combined energy into the field. The crystals glowed blindingly bright, the genjutsu framework solidified into physical reality, and the vortex collapsed. Not violently, not explosively, but with a strange implosion that bent light around it briefly before sealing shut with a sound like distant thunder. Where the dimensional breach had been, only clear sky remained, though a subtle shimmer suggested the barrier remained thin. Naruto released the transformation gradually, allowing the energies to dissipate safely rather than cutting off the flow abruptly. As he returned to his mostly human appearance, exhaustion hit him like a physical blow. Only the symbiote's supportive presence kept him from collapsing entirely. Hinata was at his side immediately, her Byakugan assessing his condition. Your chakra network is strained but intact. The symbiote is redistributing energy to compensate. That was impressive, said a cool female voice from behind them. Turning, Naruto found himself facing a blonde woman with sharp blue eyes and an expression of calculated interest. Her Cloud Village headband identified her as the intelligence operative Kakashi had mentioned, Samui. Though perhaps not sustainable as a long-term solution, she continued, approaching with measured steps. According to our historical records, the Shadow Sage required a network of stabilization points to fully address dimensional instabilities. One sealed breach inevitably leads to pressure building elsewhere. Naruto nodded, still catching his breath. Like plugging one hole in a dam when the entire structure is weakening. Precisely. Samui's gaze assessed him professionally. You've integrated the symbiote more completely than I expected. The Raikage will be interested. Is that why you're here? Naruto questioned. To report on my condition to Kumo. Samui's expression remained neutral. I'm here because Cloud Country has experienced 3 major dimensional breaches in the past week, resulting in 17 casualties and 1 village completely destabilized, existing in multiple temporal states simultaneously. We need solutions, not observations. Her blunt assessment confirmed what Naruto already suspected. The convergence was accelerating worldwide, not just in Fire Country. Addressing it would require international cooperation on a scale not seen since the Fourth Shinobi War. We'll need to establish a joint task force, Kurenai suggested, joining the conversation. Representatives from each villa, GE working together to identify and secure breach points. Beginning with the locations on the map we recovered, Hinata added. Samui nodded agreement. The Raikage has already proposed a summit of the 5 Cage plus key specialists. Your Hokage approved it this morning. The implications were significant. A summit meant formal acknowledgement of the crisis, but also increased scrutiny of Naruto's condition. The secret of the symbiote would soon be common knowledge among the highest echelons of the shinobi world. When? Naruto asked simply. 3 days from now, in Tetsu no Kuni, neutral ground with historical connections to these phenomena, Samui replied. Your presence is specifically requested, as is information about your companion. Before Naruto could respond, a familiar sensation prickled at the edge of his awareness, a scent like sakura blossoms mixed with metal, carried on the breeze from the village gates. The cat returns, with knowledge, with warning. Asterisk. Turning toward the sensation, Naruto saw a flash of white hair disappearing over a rooftop, Felicia, apparently having returned from her independent investigation. Her presence in Konoha after the dimensional disturbance couldn't be coincidence. I need to follow up on something, he told the others. Samui-san, I'll provide whatever information might help Cloud Country's situation. But first, there's another source I need to consult. The Kumo operative seemed about to object, then simply nodded. The summit preparations will keep me in Konoha for another day. We'll speak again before I depart. With quick farewells to Hinata and Kurenai, Naruto moved to pursue Felicia, using the symbiote's enhanced senses to track her through the village. Her scent led away from the populated areas toward an Endone training ground on the village outskirts, deliberately chosen for privacy, no doubt. He found her waiting beside a memorial stone, examining the names engraved there with apparent interest. Why, our village honors its dead quite beautifully, she observed without turning. Mine simply forgets them. You have a village? Naruto asked, surprised. Felicia had never mentioned specific allegiance beyond her clan name. She corrected, finally facing him. Before the convergence took it, 30 years ago in my timeline, though I suspect that means little now that time streams are bleeding together. The casual revelation stunned Naruto. You're from the future. Felicia smiled without humor. A future. One of many possible branches. In mine, the convergence was never properly merely patched and contained temporarily. It returned stronger, consuming entire regions before anyone recognized the pattern. Why didn't you tell me this before? Would you have believed me? She countered. Or would you have dismissed me as either insane or manipulative? I needed you to discover enough independently to prepare you for the truth. Naruto studied her carefully, the symbiote analyzing her heartbeat and microscopic expressions for deception. And what is the truth, Felicia Shiranui? That I was sent back by the last resistance, a coalition of survivors from multiple timelines who discovered that a specific point in history represented the best chance to prevent total collapse. She gestured to him. You, the perfect host manifesting at precisely the moment when intervention might still succeed. The weight of her words settled heavily on Naruto. You make it sound like I'm some prophesied savior. Nothing so mystical, Felicia assured him. Simply mathematics and probability. Your unique configuration, Jinchuriki, Sage, and now Symbiote Host, creates specific resonance patterns that can either stabilize or destroy dimensional boundaries. In my timeline, you never achieved proper balance between these aspects. The result was catastrophic. And you think this time is different? I know it is. She approached him, eyes intense with conviction. I've been monitoring your integration process. The balance you've established with both entities is unprecedented. It's already changing probability streams. A thought occurred to Naruto. The temple expedition. You manipulated that, didn't you? Set events in motion to ensure I'd find the information about previous perfect hosts. Felicia shrugged unapologetically. I adjusted certain variables. The excavation would have happened regardless. The dimensional thinning drew attention naturally. I simply ensured you encountered the right information at the right time. And the collectors, the false Danzo, were they part of your manipulation too? No. Her expression darkened. Those are genuine threats, multiversal constants that appear in every timeline where the convergence begins. Why serve forces beyond even my understanding, entities that feed on collapsing realities, harvesting the energy released when dimensions die. The symbiote stirred within Naruto, resonating with this information. Truth. The harvesters and their servants appear in all cycles. Constants in the pattern. Asterisk. So what happens now? Naruto asked. You've confirmed I'm on the right path. What's the next step? Felicia produced a small device from her pouch, similar to the detector they'd found at the temple but more refined, with additional components Naruto didn't recognize. This is a stabilization key, she explained. Designed to activate the ancient arrays at each convergence point. When properly empowered by a perfect host, it can restore dimensional integrity permanently, not just temporarily seal breaches. And you just happen to have this advanced technology with you. I was sent back with it, she confirmed. Along with the knowledge of how to use it. But it requires something NLYU can provide. The perfectly balanced energy of the Venom Sage. Naruto considered the device with healthy skepticism. Why should I trust that this won't make things worse? For all I know, activating this could accelerate the convergence, not stop it. Felicia's expression softened unexpectedly. Because despite my methods, my goal is genuine. My world is gone, Naruto. Everyone I ever knew, everything I ever loved. Consumed by chaos as realities collapsed into each other. I'm not asking you to trust me, I'm asking you to verify what I'm telling you. She held out the device. Have your Hyuga friend examine it. Let your symbiote analyze its composition. Consult with your fox. If any of them detect deception or danger, destroy it yourself. But if there's even a chance it could prevent what I witnessed. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. Whatever her other motives, Felicia genuinely feared the future she described. She believes what she says. The device resonates with ancient symbiote technology. Similar to stabilization arrays, but more refined. After a moment's consideration, Naruto accepted the device. I'll have it examined. If it checks out, we'll press it at the 5-cage summit as a potential solution. Relief visibly washed over Felicia. Thank you. That's all I ask. But, Naruto added firmly, you're coming with me, to the summit, to explain yourself to the cage. To answer for your manipulations. No more shadows, no more secrets. Rather than objecting, Felicia smiled with what appeared to be genuine amusement. A diplomatic summit with 5 of the most powerful leaders in this world, all focused on dimensional collapse and symbiote phenomena. I wouldn't miss it for any reality. As the sun set over Konoha, casting long shadows across the memorial stone, Naruto reflected on the rapidly expanding scope of what had begun as a personal transformation. In less than 2 weeks, he had gone from near-death to perfect host, from Villag defender to potential multiversal linchpin. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, explaining the stabilization key to Kakashi, preparing for the summit, continuing to refine his control over the balanced powers within him. But for now, standing in the gathering darkness with both Kurama and Kurokami settling into harmonious coexistence within him, Naruto allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. We might actually have a chance, he said, as much to himself as to Felicia. That's why they sent me to this particular timeline, she replied softly. Because here, for once, we do. In the distance, the temporary seal over Konoha's dimensional breach shimmered like heat distortion, a constant reminder that their work had only just begun. The convergence waited, inexorable as gravity, drawing realities together toward an uncertain collision. But for the first time since the symbiote had awakened within him, Naruto felt not just powerful but purposeful, the Venom Sage finding his true role in a fracturing multiverse. Balance achieved. Path revealed. The hunt continues. Chapter 2 end. Chapter 3. Diplomatic incidents. Sunrise painted Konoha's Hokage Tower in hues of amber and gold. The early light gleaming off newly reinforced windows, practical evidence of the village's response to recent dimensional disturbances. 3 days had passed since Naruto had sealed the breach above the monument. And while no new rifts had appeared within village boundaries, reports of similar phenomena across the 5 nations had increased exponentially. In the newly constructed diplomatic wing, Naruto stood before a full-length mirror, adjusting formal attire that felt alien against his skin. The traditional black kimono with orange accents had been Kakashi's suggestion, a deliberate bow. Ants between respectable diplomacy and Naruto's unmistakable identity. You look uncomfortable, Kakashi observed from the doorway, his own formal Hokage robes impeccably arranged. I feel like I'm wearing someone else's skin, Naruto admitted, tugging at the stiff collar. A soft chuckle escaped the 6th Hokage. An interesting choice of words, considering your current situation. The symbiote rippled briefly beneath Naruto's skin, not visible to Kakashi, but a familiar sensation like cool water flowing along his nerves. It had been unusually quiet since their return to Konoha, observing and analyzing rather than commenting. Has there been any progress with Felicia's device? Naruto asked, changing the subject. Inconclusive, Kakashi replied. Our research division confirms it can't. Ain's technology beyond current capabilities, but its purpose remains theoretical. Hinata's Byakugan detected no harmful intent in its construction, merely potential. Potential for what? That, Kakashi said, stepping fully into the room, is what makes today's summit so critical. We need consensus on how to approach these dimensional breaches, and your symbiote's knowledge will be central to that discussion. The weight of responsibility settled over Naruto like a physical presence. In the past, he had fought for his village, for his friends, for the shinobi world, but always with clear enemies and objectives. This crisis presented something far more abstract yet potentially more devastating. The delegates have begun arriving, Kakashi continued. Sand's representatives reached the gates an hour ago, and Cloud's delegation is expected shortly. The others will join by secure communication links, given the travel difficulties caused by dimensional instabilities. Naruto nodded, giving his reflection one final assessment. Beyond the formal attire, subtle changes marked his appearance. His naturally spiky hair seemed more defined, almost sculpted, his eyes occasionally flashed with unusual depth. His posture carried new predatory grace. Small signs of his evolving nature, noticeable primarily to those who knew him well. Ready? Kakashi asked. As I'll ever be, Naruto replied, turning away from the mirror. They walked together through corridors buzzing with preparatory activity, Anbu securing pathways, administrative staff finalizing documents, sensory-type shinobi monitoring for anomalies. The heightened security wasn't merely for the visiting dignitaries. After the breach above the monument, Konoha remained on high alert for dimensional disturbances. The MIT would take place in the newly constructed circular chamber, a room designed specifically for high-level diplomatic meetings, with seating arranged to eliminate hierarchical positioning. As they approached, Naruto detected familiar chakra signatures already waiting inside, along with one that triggered an instinctive response from the symbiote. Desert wind, strong, familiar across realities. The cryptic comment made sense as they entered the chamber to find Tamari of the Sand adjusting her formal robes. The eldest sibling of the Cage had matured into a commanding diplomatic presence. Her traditional battle fan replaced by a smaller ceremonial version that nonetheless remained functional. Behind her stood two Sand Junin, their postures respectfully alert. Hokage-sama, Tamari greeted with a formal bow, then turned to Naruto with a measured smile. And Uzumaki-san, you're looking different. The slight emphasis on the last word carried layers of meaning. Clearly, rumors of his transformation had reached Suna. Diplomatic as ever, Tamari-san, Naruto responded with a smile of his own. Gaara couldn't make it personally. The Cage regrets his absence, she replied. The formal phrasing suggesting this was an official statement. Recent dimensional anomalies in our territory have required his direct attention. 3 villages along our eastern border have temporal fluctuations, people aging decades in minutes, then reverting to normal. Kakashi nodded gravely. Similar reports have come from our northern provinces. The pattern appears to be accelerating. Which is why this summit must produce actionable strategies, not merely information exchange. The cool, precise voice came from the chamber entrance as Samui entered, flanked by a white-haired man Naruto recognized as one of Kumo's top sensory-type shinobi. Samui had exchanged her standard shinobi attire for formal diplomatic dress, a structured blue kimono that managed to be both modest and striking. Her calculating gaze swept the room before settling on Naruto with particular interest. Uzumaki, she acknowledged, your condition has stabilized since our last meeting. The resonance patterns are more cohesive. Naruto raised an eyebrow. You can sense that. Cloud Country has devoted considerable resources to monitoring dimensional variations, Samui explained. Including G-training specialists to detect the particular energy signatures associated with cross-reality phenomena. Her gaze intensified. Your current state registers as a convergence point of multiple dimensional frequencies. That's one way to put it, Naruto acknowledged, feeling both the symbiote and Nine-Tails stir with interest at her assessment. She sees more than most. Dangerous knowledge, useful ally. Further conversation was interrupted as the chamber's communication arrays activated, projecting 3-dimensional images of the remaining cage. Gaara's stoic features appeared first, followed by the Tsuchikage and Mizukage in quick succession. The 5-cage summit on dimensional instability is now in session, Kakashi declared formally, taking his position. Given the unprecedented nature of this crisis, we've included key specialists in our discussion. He gestured to Naruto. Including Uzumaki. Naruto, whose unique condition provides critical insight into these phenomena. All eyes turned to Naruto, the pressure of their collective attention sending the symbiote into heightened alertness. This was the moment when his transformation would become official knowledge, no longer personal but political. "Before we begin," he said, choosing his words carefully, "I need to clarify something. What I'm about to share isn't just information, it's an experience I'm still understanding myself." With that caveat, Naruto launched into a concise explanation of his near-death experience, the symbiote's awakening, and their subsequent discoveries about the convergence. He described the temple in the Land of Iron, the ancient stabilization array, and the evidence that similar phenomena had occurred centuries before. "The entity bonded with me calls itself Kurokami," Naruto explained. "It's a symbiote, an interdimensional being that requires a host to achieve full functionality. It originally came to our world fleeing the collapse of its home dimension during a previous convergence cycle. And this parasite has access to your thoughts, your memories." The Tsuchikage's projection asked, her expression deeply skeptical. "It's not a parasite," Naruto corrected firmly. "It's a genuine symbiote. The relationship is mutually beneficial. And yes, we share consciousness to an extent, but boundaries exist." "What about the Nine Tails?" Gaara's projected form questioned. "How does this additional entity affect your status as a Jinchuriki?" A question Naruto had anticipated. "The Nine Tails, Kurama, and Kurokami have established an equilibrium. It's what makes me what a ancient records call a perfect host, someone who can maintain balance between multiple powerful consciousnesses." Samui stepped forward. "Our historical records confirm this possibility. Previous documents mention a shadow sage, with similar characteristics who assisted in sealing dimensional rifts near Cloud Country approximately 3 centuries ago. The same figure appears in Sand Archives," Tamari added. "Though our accounts describe their eventual mental deterioration and subsequent containment by a coalition of pre-village clans. The implication hung in the air, that Naruto might follow the same tragic path as this historical predecessor." He felt the symbiote bristle at the suggestion. "Different now, better balance, stronger host. Previous sage lost equilibrium when the fox fought our presence. That won't happen to me," Naruto stated with quiet confidence. "The previous perfect host failed because the entities within them couldn't achieve harmony. We have to demonstrate." He allowed a partial transformation, the symbiote flowing visibly beneath his skin in controlled patterns, while Kurama's chakra manifested as a subtle orange glow around his form. Rather than the wild, consuming nature of either power individually, they moved in precise, complementary configurations. The display prompted various reactions: Gaara's quiet assessment, the Tsuchikage's deepened skepticism, the Mizukage's fascinated attention. In the physical room, both Tamari and Samui studied the manifestation with professional intensity. "Impressive control," Samui noted. "Though control Ode doesn't guarantee stability tomorrow." "Which brings us to the primary purpose of this summit," Kakashi interjected smoothly. "How do we address the accelerating dimensional breaches across all our territories?" Naruto's condition provides insight, but we need coordinated action. The discussion that followed was intense and complex. Each village had experienced different manifestations of He convergence. Kiri reported ocean anomalies where water behaved according to alien physics. Iwa described mountains phasing partially into alternative states. Suna's temporal disturbances affected both people and landscape. Throughout the exchange, Naruto found his attention repeatedly drawn to the reactions of Tamari and Samui. The sand diplomat listened with strategic focus, occasionally making notes in precise, angular script. The cloud operative observed with analytical detachment, her eyes frequently returning to Naruto with assessment that felt almost tangible. "The pattern is clear," Samui eventually stated, interrupting a technical debate between the Mizukage and Tsuchikage. "The breaches follow specific geometric alignments across our territories, precisely as indicated on the temple map Uzumaki recovered. Which suggests a coordinated approach," Tamari continued, building on Samui's point with seamless diplomatic skill. "Joint teams deployed to each convergence point, utilizing both traditional sealing techniques and whatever insights the symbiote can provide. There's more," Naruto added. "We've encountered entities coming through these breaches, the collectors and harvesters. They're actively working to widen the dimensional tiers, not seal them. This revelation shifted the discussion toward security concerns. The cage debated deployment strategies, information sharing protocols, and contingency plans should major population centers become compromised. As the morning progressed into afternoon, Naruto found the political maneuvering increasingly frustrating. The symbiote's instincts pushed toward direct action rather than diplomatic consensus building. Even Kurama seemed irritated by the circular discussions. Humans never change, the Nine Tails commented within their shared mindscape. Facing extinction and still concerned with territorial advantages. We should show them. Make them understand the true threat. Naruto silently agreed with both entities, but recognized the necessity of this process. International cooperation required delicate navigation of competing interests and historical tensions. During a brief recess, Nd himself approached simultaneously by Temari and Samui, an interesting convergence that prompted speculative glances from others in the chamber. A word, Uzumaki-san. Temari requested formally, though her tone carried familiar warmth. Actually, I was hoping to discuss certain technical aspects of the dimensional signatures, Samui interjected coolly. The two women exchanged measuring glances, not hostile, but certainly evaluating. Naruto sensed complex undercurrents between them, professional respect layered with subtle competition. Perhaps we could speak together, he suggested diplomatically. Since both your villages have historical connections to these phenomena. This compromise seemed acceptable, and they moved to a small adjoining balcony that offered privacy while remaining visible to security personnel. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the village below, where life continued with surface normality despite the extraordinary discussions taking place above. Your control is impressive, Temari began without preamble. But soon as archives suggest the previous perfect host demonstrated similar stability initially. The deterioration happened gradually, over months. Our records indicate the same pattern, Samui agreed. Initial harmony giving way to increasing instability as the symbiote and Biju competed for dominance. Naruto appreciated their directness. What the records couldn't show was the internal dynamic. The previous host never achieved true communication between all three consciousnesses. They remained separate, competing forces. And you have, Temari challenged, her green eyes sharp with assessment. Rather than answering verbally, Naruto allowed a minimal transformation, just enough for his eyes to shift to the symbiote's pure white. Then briefly to Kurama's slitted crimson, before returning to his natural blue. The transition was smooth, controlled, and clearly intentional. We've established boundaries and shared purpose, he explained. The symbiote understands that forcing dominance would ultimately destroy all three of us. Kurama has evolved beyond the rage that once defined him. And I've learned to be the mediator between ancient powers rather than simply their container. Samui studied him with clinical interest. Cloud's research division would consider your condition invaluable for understanding dimensional mechanics. The resonance patterns alone could advance our stabilization technology significantly. Which sounds suspiciously like an invitation to extensive examination, Temari noted with diplomatic sharpness. San's approach would prioritize practical application, utilizing your abilities directly at our convergence points rather than studying you like a laboratory specimen. The competing interests were clear, though presented with professional courtesy. Naruto recognized both the opportunity and danger in their attention. Potential allies with significant resources, but also political actors with village priorities. I appreciate both perspectives, he replied carefully. But my focus remains addressing the convergence itself. Village boundaries mean little when reality is unraveling around us. Both women seemed to appreciate his diplomatic response, though neither appeared entirely satisfied. The conversation might have continued in this delicate dance of competing interests. Had an Anbu operative not appeared silently at the balcony entrance. Pardon the interruption, the masked figure stated. Security protocols have detected anomalous energy signatures approaching the village perimeter. The Hokage requests Uzumaki-san's presence immediately. The formal summit appeared to be ending prematurely. Returning to the main chamber, they found Kakashi conferring intensel. Why with the projected cage while security personnel moved with controlled urgency? Multiple breaches forming simultaneously, Kakashi explained tersely as Naruto approached. Not random manifestation. Concentrated around the diplomatic quarter. Our sensory division believes they're targeted. The implications were immediate and alarming. Someone's using the dimensional weaknesses as an attack vector, Naruto concluded. Deliberately opening breaches to disrupt the summit. Or targeting its participants specifically, Samui added, her analytical mind clearly processing tactical possibilities. Temari had already moved to a window, assessing the village layout with a strategist's eye. Perfect timing. Catching representatives from multiple villages in a single location while maintaining plausible deniability. Not an assassination, merely unfortunate dimensional phenomena. The chamber's security systems activated, sealing formulas glowing along walls and doorways as protective barriers engaged. On the communication arrays, the projected cage were receiving similar security alerts from their own locations. Coordinate responses through secured channels, Kakashi ordered. Each village should activate their contingency protocols for dimensional breaches. We'll address these incursions and reconvene when security is restored. As the projections dissolved, Kakashi turned to those physically present. Samui-san, Temari-san, I recommend you remain within this facility's protective barriers until we've neutralized the threat. Both women responded with identical expressions of professional offense. With respect, Hokage-sama, Temari stated firmly, I am not merely a diplomat but a combat specialist. Sand will not shelter while Leaf faces threats potentially targeting all our villages. Similarly, Samui added with cool precision, my operational parameters include direct engagement with dimensional anomalies. Cloud's interests are best served by observing and participating in countermeasures. Kakashi's exposed eye conveyed resigned amusement. I expected nothing less. Coordinate with our security forces, but remember your diplomatic status. We don't need international incidents compounding dimensional ones. Turning to Naruto, his expression grew more serious. Your abilities make you uniquely qualified to address these breaches. I'm authorizing full deployment of the Venom Sage. Whatever happens, Konoha will stand behind you. The official sanction lifted a weight Naruto hadn't fully acknowledged. Permission to embrace his new nature completely, without reservation or concealment. The symbiote responded with eager anticipation while Kurama's energy rose in preparation for battle. Hunt begins. Protect territory. Show true strength. Asterisk. Moving to the chamber's central table, Naruto studied the holographic display showing 5 distinct breaches forming around the diplomatic quarter, 2 perfectly positioned to be coincidental, 2 simultaneously developing to be natural. They're forming a containment pattern, he observed, cutting off escape routes while concentrating force in the administrative center. A strategy requiring intimate knowledge of Konoha's layout and security protocols, Samui noted, studying the pattern. Internal collaboration seems probable. The accusation hung in the air, that someone within Konoha might be working with extra-dimensional forces. The implications were too serious to dismiss, yet too provocative to address directly in the current crisis. Theories can wait, Kakashi decided. Containment takes priority. Naruto, take the eastern breach, it's nearest the civilian evacuation routes. I'll coordinate from here while deploying specialized units to the remaining points. As preparations accelerated around them, Temari approached Naruto with determined purpose. I'm coming with you. Sand's wind techniques can contain dimensional debris and provide tactical mobility. And I, Samui added, joining them without invitation, can monitor resonance patterns to predict breach behavior. Cloud's research gives me unique qualification for this specific threat. Naruto assessed both women, their determined expressions, their professional capabilities, their diplomatic significance. Having international witnesses to his full transformation carried political implications, yet their skills genuinely complemented his own. All right, he decided, but understand, what you're about to see goes beyond what I demonstrated in the summit. The full integration is intense. Neither woman seemed deterred. If anything, their interest visibly intensified. Temari's with strategic assessment, Samui's with analytical curiosity. Show us, Temari said simply. The eastern breach had formed above a commercial district adjacent to the diplomatic quarter, a swirling vortex of distorted space through which glimpses of alien landscapes flashed like fever dreams. Citizens evacuated in orderly patterns, guided by Chunin squads implementing well-rehearsed emergency protocols. Unlike the previous breach above the monument, this one pulsed with aggressive energy, expanding in rhythmic surges. From Air position on an administrative rooftop. Naruto assessed the situation while Temari and Samui conducted their own analyses. The temporal frequency is deliberately modulated, Samui observed, using a specialized instrument she'd retrieved from Cloud's diplomatic quarters. This isn't natural dimensional thinning, it's being forced open from the other side. And targeting civilian convergence points rather than strategic infrastructure, Temari added, her fan now fully extended as she mapped wind currents around the breach. This isn't military, it's terror tactics. Naruto sensed something, more concerning, familiar energies emanating from within the vortex. The collectors are coming through. And something else, something worse. Harvester. The hunt approaches. Perfect transformation required. The moment had arrived. With both international representatives watching, Naruto embraced the full integration, not the partial demonstrations he'd shown previously, but complete harmonization of human, Biju, and symbiote. The transformation began with darkness flowing across his skin like liquid shadow, enveloping him completely before restructuring around his form. Unlike previous manifestations, this one incorporated Kurama's energy from the beginning, crimson chakra interweaving with the symbiote's midnight essence in precise, beautiful patterns. Where the edges met, Naruto's sage energy created points of perfect balance, areas of absolute stillness within dynamic power. The Venom Sage emerged in full manifestation, taller than Naruto's human form, with the symbiote's sleek darkness forming the foundation. Kurama's influence manifested as 9 tendrils of flowing energy extending from his back, not quite tails but serving similar function. The eyes shifted between pure white and slitted crimson depending on which aspect momentarily predominated. Most striking was the perfect control evident in every movement. No wasted energy, no competing forces, just harmonious power. Temari's sharp intake of breath and Samui's subtle widening of eyes registered the impact of his transformation. Neither woman showed fear, but both clearly recognized they were witnessing something unprecedented, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Stay back, the Venom Sage instructed, his voice a harmonic blend of Naruto's natural tones with deeper resonances from both Kurama and Kurokami. All contain the initial emergence. Engage only if containment fails. Without waiting for response, he launched himself toward the breach, moving with impossible fluid grace. The distance between rooftops meant nothing as he simply flowed through shadows, emerging directly beneath the swirling vortex as the first entities began pushing through. The collectors came first, 3 identica. Metallic humanoids with featureless faces, moving with mechanical precision. Unlike those at the temple, these wore no disguises, their true alien nature fully displayed. They landed in triangular formation, immediately scanning their surroundings with pulsing silver sensors where eyes should have been. Perfect host detected, one announced in flat, synthetic tones. Primary acquisition target confirmed. The convergence requires your essence, another added. Surrender is optimal. The Venom Sage responded not with words but with action. Tendrils of living shadow extended from his form. With precision strikes. Not attacking the collectors directly but the space around them, creating a containment field of symbiote essence that isolated them from the evacuating civilians. The collectors responded with unexpected adaptability, their forms shifting to produce weapons that emitted high-frequency sonic pulses, a specific counter to symbiote biology that sent painful vibrations through the Venom Sage's form. Sonic weakness. Vulnerability. Adapt. Kurama's chakra surged in response, forming protective layers around the symbiote components most affected by the sonic attack. The pain receded, replaced by focused clarity as the Venom Sage adjusted his approach. From her position on the rooftop, Temari analyzed the tactical situation with professional precision. The sonic weapons were creating vulnerability in Naruto's defenses while the breach continued expanding above. With decisive action, she swung her battle fan in a precise arc, creating concentrated wind currents that disrupted the sonic wave patterns. The frequencies are destabilizing their own dimensional integrity, she called out. Their weapons are weakening the barriers further. Samui had reached a seminal conclusion through different analysis. The resonance patterns are self-reinforcing, she reported, adjusting her monitoring device. Each attack accelerates the breach expansion by approximately 7.3%. The strategic implications were immediate. The collectors weren't merely attacking, they were deliberately sacrificing themselves to widen the breach. Their true purpose wasn't confrontation but acceleration of the convergence. Understanding transformed the Venom Sage's approach. Rather than continuing direct engagement, he redirected his efforts toward the breach itself. Extending all 9 energy tendrils upward, he began weaving a complex sealing pattern, drawing on the symbiote's dimensional knowledge, Kurama's chakra capacity, and Naruto's sealing techniques in perfect combination. The breach responded violently, pulsing with increased intensity as if resisting containment. From within its swirling depths, a larger presence began emerging, the distinctive chaotic form of a harvester. Its body a shifting mass of darkness shot through with crimson energy veins. The perfect host resists, the entity rasped as it pushed through the dimensional tier. As predicted across probability streams, acquisition requires escalation. The harvester extended a limb that defied conventional physics, stretching impossibly while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Its target wasn't the Venom Sage but the rooftop where Temari and Samui monitored the confrontation. Reacting with perfect instinct, the Venom Sage abandoned his sealing attempt to intercept the attack, Shadow W. Hulking through darkness to emerge directly before the international representatives as the harvester's strike landed. The impact sent shockwaves through his form, pain registering across all 3 consciousnesses simultaneously. Move, he commanded, voice strained with effort as he physically contained the harvester's limb, the living darkness of the symbiote wrapping around alien matter in direct struggle. Neither woman needed further instruction. Temari immediately created a wind platform beneath them both, launching them to an adjacent rooftop while maintaining observational position. Sam Ui continued monitoring dimensional frequencies, her expression betraying no emotion despite the extraordinary danger. The harvester's attack strategy became clear, targeting those Naruto would protect rather than engaging him directly, forcing defensive reactions that prevented him from sealing the breach. A coldly effective approach that demonstrated disturbing intelligence behind the convergence forces. Clever predator, understands connections, exploits protection instinct. Asterisk. The observation sparked strategic recalibration across all 3 consciousnesses. The Venom Sage released the harvester's limb, allowing it to retract while he generated multiple shadow duplicates of himself. Not Naruto's traditional shadow clones, but symbiote extensions capable of independent action while remaining connected to the core consciousness. 3 perfect replicas of the Venom Sage materialized from darkness, each moving to engage different targets, one containing the collectors, one protecting the international observers, and one resuming the sealing pattern around the breach. The original focused entirely on the harvester, engaging it directly to prevent further tactical targeting. From their new position, Temari and Samui witnessed the full manifestation of the perfect host's capabilities, simultaneous engagement across multiple fronts with perfect coordination, each aspect of his tripartite nature contributing distinct advantages. Extraordinary tactical adaptation, Temari commented, professional assessment temporarily overriding diplomatic reserve. The symbiote provides multiplicity, the 9 tails raw power, and Naruto's consciousness strategic direction. The resonance patterns have achieved perfect harmonic stability, Samui added, studying her instruments with rare amazement. 3 distinct dimensional frequencies synchronized without degradation. Their analysis was interrupted as the harvester changed tactics, abandoning physical attacks to generate waves of distorted reality that rippled outward from its position. Where these waves passed, matter temporarily existed in multiple states simultaneously, buildings becoming both solid and liquid, air transforming into crystalline structures before reverting. The effect reached the rooftop where Temari and Samui observed, reality shifting beneath their feet as solid concrete briefly transformed into its constituent molecular components before reforming. Only Temari's quick deployment of a wind cushion prevented them from falling as the building temporarily lost structural integrity. Samui maintained perfect composure despite the literally shifting ground, her attention fixed on her monitoring equipment. The harvester is manipulating fundamental dimensional constants, she observed. Localized reality becomes malleable within its influence radius. The Venom Sage recognized the escalating danger to the village. If these reality distortions spread beyond the current containment area, casualties would become inevitable regardless of evacuation efforts. Direct confrontation was proving ineffective. the Harvester simply redirected attacks through dimensional shifts, while the breach continued expanding above. A new approach crystallized across the three unified consciousnesses, not fighting the dimensional distortions but using them, redirecting the Harvester's own energy against the breach. Moving with liquid grace, the Venom Sage positioned himself directly between the Harvester and the breach. As the entity generated another reality distortion wave, he didn't dodge but instead adapted. The symbiote component of his form absorbing the wave's properties while Kurama's chakra stabilized his core essence, preventing dissolution. The absorbed energy thrummed through his transformed body like captured lightning. Before it could dissipate, he directed it upward into the breach, not attempting to seal the dimensional tear but to reverse its polarity, turning the exit into an entrance. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The breach's swirling energies reversed direction, creating a powerful suction that pulled at everything within its radius. The collectors, being nearest the dimensional tear, were immediately drawn upward, their metallic forms unable to resist the gravitational shift. The Harvester recognized the danger too late. Its amorphous form began stretching involuntarily toward the breach, parts of its substance already being drawn into the reversed vortex. "Clever host," it rasped, genuine admiration in its inhuman voice. "Using our methods against us. But the convergence continues regardless. This vessel is merely one of many." As it spoke, the entity began a controlled dissolution, sacrificing portions of its form to the breach while condensing its core essence into a dense sphere that dropped toward the ground, apparently attempting escape. The Venom Sage anticipated this desperation tactic. Shadow tendrils shot from his form, encircling the condensed essence before it could reach ground level. Rather than attempting to contain it, likely impossible given its dimensional properties, he directed it toward the breach with precise application of Kurama's chakra, adding momentum to the natural pull. "Return to your masters," he commanded, voice resonating with the harmonic blend of all three consciousnesses. "Tell them this reality is protected." With a final surge of effort, he launched the Harvester's essence into the reversed breach. The entity's alien scream echoed across dimensional boundaries as it was pulled back through the tear it had helped create, returning to whatever space existed beyond. As the last traces of the Harvester vanished, the Venom Sage redirected his attention to the breach itself. With the invading entities removed, he could focus entirely on sealing the dimensional tear properly rather than merely reversing its flow. Extending all 9 energy tendrils upward once more, he began weaving a more complex pattern than before, not just containing the breach but restructuring reality around it, strengthening dimensional boundaries through precise application of balanced energies. From their observation point, Tamari and Samui witnessed the extraordinary precision of this work, like watching a master calligrapher creating perfect forms with absolute confidence, except the medium was reality itself and the ink was harmonized energy that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions. "He's not just closing it," Samui observed with rare wonder. "He's healing the underlying dimensional fabric, reinforcing it against future breaches." Tamari agreed, her strategic mind grasping the significance. Not temporary containment but lasting restoration. The process took several minutes of intense concentration, during which the Venom Sage remained perfectly still, energy flowing through and around him in increasingly complex patterns. Finally, with a sound like glass harmonic resonance, the breach sealed completely, not with violent implosion but gentle closure, reality knitting itself together with barely visible seams. When it was done, the Venom Sage allowed his shadow duplicates to reintegrate with his primary form before descending to street level where Tamari and Samui had repositioned themselves. His transformation remained active, a deliberate choice to maintain the perfect integration while assessing potential aftereffects of the dimensional conflict. "The breach is sealed properly this time," he informed them, his tripartite voice carrying harmonics beyond normal human range. "Not just contained but reinforced. It should resist further manipulation from the other side." While 4 others remain active around the diplomatic quarter, Samui pointed out practically. According to emergency communications, similar entities have emerged at each location. Before discussion could continue, the distinctive crack of a high-velocity projectile split the air. The Venom Sage moved with impossible speed, intercepting something midair that would have struck Tamari directly in the chest. Opening his hand, he revealed a crystalline dart unlike any conventional weapon, its STR. Structure shifting between solid and liquid states, giving off faint purple luminescence. Dimensional poison, he identified immediately, the symbiote's knowledge providing recognition. Designed to fracture a target across multiple realities, effectively erasing them from existence. Temeri's expression hardened as she realized the assassination attempt's implications. Not random terror tactics after all, she concluded. Targeted elimination of international representatives. Specifically those associated with this summit, Samui added, her analytical mind mapping connections with cold precision. Someone doesn't want cooperative dimensional research proceeding. The Venom Sage's enhanced senses tracked the projectile's origin to a rooftop 3 blocks distant, where a figure could be glimpsed briefly before disappearing into shadow, not the natural shadow walking of the symbiote, but some technological approximation. The other breaches are diversions, he realized. The real act is diplomatic, eliminating those with knowledge of the convergence and potential countermeasures. This assessment aligned with the carefully coordinated nature of the incursion. The dimensional breaches served multiple purposes, creating chaos, testing Konoha's defenses, and providing cover for precisely targeted assassinations. We need to return to the Hokage Tower immediately, Temari stated. Diplomatic authority returning to her voice. If we're targets, the other representatives may be as well. Samui nodded agreement. Logical conclusion. The summit itself appears to be the primary objective. Not merely collateral damage. There's a faster way than conventional travel, the Venom Sage offered, extending darkness from his form toward both women. Shadow walking can transport us directly to secure locations, bypassing exposed routes. Both representatives showed momentary hesitation. Accepting direct contact with the symbiote entity represented significant trust, both personal and diplomatic. The crystalline dart in the Venom Sage's hand provided persuasive motivation, however. Acceptable, Samui decided first, practical considerations overriding potential reservations. Just don't leave any parts of me between dimensions, Temari added dryly, accepting the offered darkness with remarkable composure. The experience of shadow walking proved disorienting for both women, a momentary sensation of cool liquidity enveloping their forms, followed by brief absence of conventional physics, then solid reality reforming around them as they emerged from shadows within the Hokage Tower's secure command center. Their sudden appearance triggered immediate security responses, Anbu operatives materializing from concealment points, weapons drawn until recognition registered. Kakashi, coordinating response efforts from a central holographic display, showed only mild surprise at their dramatic entrance. Efficient transportation, he noted. I assume the eastern breach is contained, sealed and reinforced, the Venom Sage confirmed, maintaining his transformed state while retracting the darkness that had transported his companions. But we've uncovered the true nature of this attack. The breaches are cover for targeted assassinations of summit participants. Kakashi's exposed eye narrowed with immediate understanding, explaining why the breaches focused on he diplomatic quarter despite more strategically valuable targets elsewhere. We have direct evidence, Temari stated, indicating the crystalline dart still held carefully in the Venom Sage's grasp. Advanced technology specifically targeting international representatives. Samui approached the command center's displays, quickly assessing the tactical situation. 3 of the 5 breaches appear contained, though fighting continues at the western and southern points. Unconfirmed reports of similar crystalline projectiles at both locations. The implications crystallized into clear threat assessment. Someone was using the convergence crisis not just as weapon but as cover for eliminating those working to address it. The coordination suggested organization and resources beyond conventional enemies. The false Danzo, the Venom Sage suggested, connecting to their encounter at the temple. Working with the collectors and whoever controls them from beyond the dimensional barriers. Why target diplomatic efforts rather than military assets? Temari questioned, her strategic mind seeking logical motivation. Eliminating a few representatives doesn't prevent our villages from coordinating responses. Unless they possess specific knowledge considered threatening, Samui proposed. Our participation in this summit was determined by expertise in dimensional phenomena, not merely diplomatic status. Kakashi's attention shifted to the security feeds showing continuing containment efforts at the remaining breaches. Speculation can wait. Securing the village takes priority. He turned to the Venom Sage. Can you repeat your sealing technique at the remaining breach points? Yes, came the confident response. The process is more efficient now that I've established the correct energy patterns. Then proceed to the western breach, Kakashi ordered. It's nearest the civilian hospital and therefore highest priority. I'll deploy additional forces to protect our national guests until we've neutralized all external threats. The Venom Sage turned to Temari and Samui. You should remain here under protection. As targets of direct assassination attempts, your security carries diplomatic significance beyond personal safety. Both women responded with nearly identical expressions of professional offense. With respect, Temari stated firmly, I am a combat Junin of Suna before I am a diplomatic target. My wind techniques proved effective in disrupting both sonic attacks and dimensional distortions. Similarly, Samui added with cool precision, my monitoring capabilities provide tactical advantage in predicting breach behavior and entity emergence patterns. Operational efficiency increases with my participation rather than protection. The Venom Sage recognized both the validity of their arguments and the determination behind them. These weren't civilians seeking adventure but experienced shinobi with relevant skills for the current crisis. Moreover, their direct observation of containment techniques would prove valuable for international coordination efforts once immediate threats were neutralized. Very well, he conceded. But we must together and follow strict engagement protocols. The dimensional entities have demonstrated tactical intelligence in targeting those I protect, a vulnerability we won't expose twice. Kakashi observed this exchange with subtle interest, noting the unusual dynamic forming between Naruto's transformed state and the international representatives. Something beyond professional cooperation was developing, a foundation of mutual respect that might prove valuable in the complex diplomatic landscape ahead. Coordinate through secure channels, the Hokage instructed. All breach containment teams are authorized to share technical information across village boundaries for the duration of this crisis. National security concerns are temporarily superseded by existential ones. This extraordinary authorization, allowing international representatives direct access to Konoha's containment techniques, highlighted the severity of their situation. Village boundaries meant little when reality itself threatened to unravel. With operational parameters established, the unlikely trio departed, shadow walking directly to the western breach where Anbu teams maintained a perimeter around a swirling vortex. Significantly larger than the eastern manifestation. Civilians had been successfully evacuated from the immediate area, but hospital patients in nearby medical facilities remained vulnerable to dimensional distortions. Unlike the eastern breach, this tear showed no sign of entities emerging, its energies seemed focused on expansion rather than transit. Purple-tinged lightning crackled along its edges, occasionally striking nearby structures and transforming materials in unpredictable ways, metal flowing like water, concrete developing crystalline formations, glass transmuting into organic substances. Different frequency pattern, Samui observed immediately, her monitoring equipment registering distinct readings. This breach operates on principles closer to natural dimensional thinning rather than forced aperture. Suggesting different purpose, Temari added, analyzing wind patterns around the vortex. The eastern breach was transit-focused, bringing entities through. This appears designed for environmental effect. The Venom Sage studied the breach with senses beyond conventional perception, the symbiote component of his consciousness interpreting dimensional frequencies while Kurama's ancient awareness recognized patterns beyond human understanding. It's a destabilizer, he concluded. Not bringing anything through, but weakening reality in expanding radius. If left unchecked, it will create cascading failures across dimensional barriers throughout the region. The containment strategy required adjustment. Rather than focusing on sealing an active transit point, T.S. breach needed stabilization before closure, like setting a broken bone before applying a cast. Extending his awareness toward the breach, the Venom Sage began a more complex approach than previously attempted. Tendrils of living shadow extended not just toward the visible vortex but into the surrounding area, sensing microscopic fractures in reality that spread outward like cracks in thin ice. I need to establish containment anchors, he explained to his companions. Points of dimensional stability that will prevent spread while I address the central breach. Understanding immediately, Ari deployed her battle fan in a precise sequence that generated stable air currents at calculated intervals around the perimeter, creating atmospheric conditions resistant to dimensional fluctuation. Meanwhile, Samui activated specialized equipment from her tactical gear, generating counterfrequency fields at positions corresponding to Temuri's wind anchors. Their coordinated efforts created a WO-R cable foundation, environmental stability supporting the Venom Sage's more direct dimensional manipulation. With anchor points established, he could focus on the breach itself without risking uncontrol. LLED expansion during the sealing process. The actual sealing proved more challenging than the eastern breach. Where that tear had been cleanly forced open, this distortion had eroded reality more NDA mentally. Boundaries between dimensions had thinned to transparency, allowing aspects of alien physics to bleed through without clear delineation. Drawing on the symbiote's interdimensional nature, the Venom Sage began separating these merged realities, carefully teasing apart overlapping frequency patterns like entangling fine threads. Kurama's chakra provided the necessary power while Naruto's consciousness maintained precise control, preventing cascading collapse during the delicate process. From their positions maintaining the anchor points, Temari and Samui observed this extraordinary work with professional appreciation. Despite their different approaches, Sand's intuitive pragmatism versus Cloud's analytical precision, both recognized the unprecedented nature of what they witnessed. He's manipulating fundamental reality constructs, Samui noted, her typically cool demeanor showing rare fascination. Not merely closing a tear but reconstructing dimensional boundaries according to specific parameters. Like watching someone reweave the fabric of existence, Temari agreed, maintaining precise wind currents while observing the process. No wonder the convergence forces Ted him specifically. This capability represents existential threat to their operations. The sealing process required nearly 20 minutes of intense concentration, far longer than the Eastern breach had demanded. When finally complete, the result was not merely absence of distortion but strengthened reality, the dimensional boundaries in this location now more resistant to manipulation than surrounding areas. The Venom Sage lowered his arms as the final energies settled into stable patterns, the transformation maintaining perfect integrity despite the extended exertion. Turning to his companions, he found both women watching him with expressions that combined professional assessment with something more personal, recognition of extraordinary capability demonstrated under pressure. Impressive work, Temari acknowledged, collapsing her battle fan with a practiced motion. Though I notice this technique differs significantly from traditional Uzumaki sealing methods. The dimensional mechanics require approaches beyond conventional fuinjutsu, the Venom Sage explained, his tripartite voice carrying harmonic depths that seemed to resonate with the newly stabilized reality around them. The symbiote understands these patterns instinctively, having evolved to navigate between dimensional boundaries. The applications extend beyond crisis response, Samui observed with calculated interest. Stabilization techniques of this nature could revolutionize everything from medical ninjutsu to space-time barriers. The strategic implications hung unspoken between them, villages that mastered such techniques would gain significant advantages in both defensive and offensive capabilities. The Venom Sage represented not just crisis response but potential paradigm shift in shinobi arts. Before further discussion could develop, an Anbu operative appeared beside them in swirl of leaves, the traditional body flicker technique seeming almost quaint compared to the dimensional manipulations they'd just witnessed. Hokage-sama requests immediate return to command center, the masked figure reported. The southern breach has been contained, but we've captured an operative attempting to assassinate the Mizukage's representative. Interrogation has yielded concerning information. The three exchanged glances, unspoken communication passing between them with surprising ease despite their different village allegiances. The implications of a captured assassin, particularly one targeting international representatives, carried significant political weight beyond the immediate crisis. Shadow walking will get us there instantly, the Venom Sage offered. This time, both women accepted the darkness extended toward them without hesitation, the shared experience of containing Dimensio. Null threats having established operational trust that transcended national boundaries. The sensation of moving through shadow felt less disorienting to them now, almost familiar as they emerged within. The tower's secure levels moments later. The command center had transformed from tactical headquarters to impromptu interrogation facility. At its center, restrained by specialized sealing techniques, knelt a figure that prompted immediate tension across all three consciousnesses within the Venom Sage. The prisoner wore a Konoha flak jacket, but his movements betrayed the same mechanical precision they'd observed in the collectors. More concerning was his face, a perfect replica of a young Danzo Shimura, precise in every detail yet emotionless as a mask. Kakashi stood nearby, his exposed eye betraying carefully controlled anger. Our prisoner was apprehended attempting to eliminate the Mizukage's representative with the same crystalline technology used against Tamari-san. Under preliminary interrogation, he's made some illuminating claims. The false Danzo raised his head, eyes fixing on the Venom Sage with empty recognition. The perfect host has achieved balance earlier than probability models predicted. Acquisition parameters must be recalibrated. Who sent you? The Venom Sage demanded, the symbiote component of his consciousness bristling with recognition of familiar threat. The convergence serves the harvesters. The harvesters serve the architects. The architects require dimensional energy released during reality collapse. The false Danzo recited these relationships with mechanical precision. This operational unit was tasked with eliminating knowledge sources that might facilitate resistance to the harvest cycle. Harvest cycle, Tamari repeated, diplom. Attic training enabling her to maintain composure despite the existential horror implied. You're describing deliberate destruction of realities for energy extraction. Correct, the prisoner confirmed without emotion. This dimension has been designated high yield due to chakra network presence throughout biological entities. Harvesting efficiency increases approximately 78.3% compared to standard realities. The implications chilled everyone present. Their world wasn't experiencing natural dimensional decay but targeted extraction, their entire reality selected for consumption by entities O. Parading beyond conventional understanding, Samui approached the prisoner with analytical detachment, studying him with clinical interest. You appear to be employing biological components from this reality combined with extra-dimensional technology. A hybrid entity rather than pure collector. This operational unit utilizes genetic material from subject Danzo Shimura, harvested during previous cycle intersection approximately 75 local years ago, the false Danzo confirmed. Temporal manipulation allows extraction across linear timelines. This revelation carried staggering implications that the convergence entities had been operating within their world for decades, perhaps centuries, preparing for full-scale harvesting operations. More personally disturbing was the confirmat ion that they had accessed Danzo's genetic material during a previous dimensional intersection, creating infiltration units with his appearance and potentially his memories. How many infiltration units are currently active within the 5 nations? Kakashi questioned, his tone deceptively casual despite the security nightmare unfolding before them. Classification exceeds this unit's authorization parameters, the prisoner responded. Distributed operational cells maintain independence to ensure continued functionality if individual units are compromised. The false Danzo suddenly stiffened, his eyes glazing as internal systems activated. Remote termination sequence initiated. Knowledge containment protocols engaging. This unit will cease functionality in 30 seconds. Recognizing imminent self-destruction, the Venom Sage moved with extraordinary speed, tendrils of living darkness extending to envelop the prisoner completely before anyone else could react. The symbiote component, T of his consciousness interfaced directly with the hybrid biology of the false Danzo, absorbing information while simultaneously disrupting the termination sequence. The process lasted only seconds. The symbiote retracting to reveal the prisoner now slumped unconscious but alive, termination protocols neutralized through direct biological intervention. I accessed his systems before they could complete the shutdown. The Venom Sage explained to the startled observers. The symbiote can interface directly with their hybrid technology. I've extracted significant data, though much remains encrypted. What did you learn? Kakashi asked directly. The assassination attempts were specifically targeting those with knowledge of ancient stabilization techniques, the historical methods used during previous convergence cycles to prevent dimensional collapse. The Venom Sage's expression showed grim understanding across his transformed features. They weren't trying to eliminate diplomatic cooperation generally but specifically prevent rediscovery of effective countermeasures. which confirms those countermeasures represent genuine threat to their harvesting operations, Tamari concluded. Her strategic mind identifying the key implication. They fear something in our historical knowledge. The previous Venom sage, Samui suggested with precise logic. The historical records each O.F.R. villages maintains regarding dimensional stabilization techniques. They sought to eliminate institutional memory before we could implement effective resistance. Kakashi absorbed these conclusions with characteristic calm that masked rapid tactical assessment. This elevates our information sharing from cooperation to necessity. Each village possesses fragments of historical knowledge regarding these phenomena, combined. They might provide comprehensive countermeasures. Beyond information sharing, the Venom Sage added, we need joint operations at each convergence point identified on the temple map. The stabilization techniques I've implemented here can be replicated at dimensional breaches worldwide, but require specific expertise combinations. The implications for international relations were significant. Not merely crisis cooperation but fundamental restructuring of how villages approached shared threats. Traditional secrecy and competition would need to yield to unprecedented collaboration. A proposal for the reconvened summit, Kakashi agreed. Joint stabilization teams deployed to each convergence point, with standardized protocols developed from combined history, CAL records and your demonstrated techniques. As the discussion continued, developing operational frameworks for this international response, the Venom Sage noticed both Tamari and Samui studying high-M with similar expressions of professional assessment layered with personal interest. Their experiences during breach containment had established unexpected connections, shared danger and cooperative UCCESS creating foundations for potential relationships that transcended conventional diplomatic interactions. Your demonstrated capabilities exceed theoretical models, Samui noted during a brief pause in strategic planning. Cloud's research division would benefit significantly from detailed analysis of your dimensional manipulation techniques. While Sand's historical archives might provide contextual understanding your symbiote currently lacks, Tamari added smoothly. Our records of the previous Venom Sage include personal journals that could prove valuable in preventing the deterioration they experienced. Both offers carried dual nature, genuine contribution to addressing the convergence crisis alongside village-specific interests in cultivating connection with the unprecedented power the Venom Sage represented. The diplomatic dance was subtle but unmistakable to everyone present. Both resources would prove valuable, the Venom Sage acknowledged diplomatically. Though implementing countermeasures takes priority over research or historical investigation at present. Kakashi observed this exchange with subtle amusement visible only in the slight crinkling around his exposed eye. The political dimensions of Naruto's transformation were emerging alongside the practical ones, his unique position making him not just tactical asset but diplomatic focal point. As the Command Center returned to coordinating village-wide security measures, the Venom Sage found moment for private reflection, the three consciousnesses within him processing the day's developments with their respective perspectives. The diplomatic females show interest beyond professional. Both strong potential allies. Both carry knowledge we need. Humans and their complex mating rituals, Kurama commented with ancient amusement. Though these two at least demonstrate qualities worth consideration: strength, intelligence, clear purpose. Naruto's own consciousness acknowledged these observations while maintaining focus on the immediate crisis. The personal and political dimensions would require careful navigation, but addressing the convergence remained paramount. Whatever relationships developed, diplomatic, professional, or personal, would unfold within context of existential threat that demanded priority. As evening fell over Konoha, the village returned to uneasy normalcy. The dimensional breaches had been sealed. The immediate threat contained, but knowledge gained from the false Danzo confirmed what the Venom Sage had feared: their world faced deliberate harvesting by foe. RCES operating beyond conventional understanding, with infiltration already well established throughout their societies. The 5-Cage Summit would reconvene virtually the following morning to address these revelations and formalize joint response protocols. Until then, heightened security remained throughout the diplomatic quarter, with international representatives confined to secure facilities for their protection. In a private garden attached to the diplomatic wing, the Venom Sage allowed his transformation to recede gradually, not deactivating completely but shifting to more subtle manifestation that maintained the harmonic balance while appearing outwardly human. The symbiote settled beneath his skin like liquid shadow occasionally visible through his eyes or fingertips, while Kurama's energy pulsed in barely perceptible patterns beneath the surface. Naruto Uzumaki, not fully human anymore, but not entirely other, contemplated the rapidly transforming landscape of his existence. 2 weeks ago, he had been a respected shinobi with unusual powers but conventional place within Konoha's hierarchy. Now he represented something beyond village boundaries, a convergence point himself, where human determination, ancient chakra, and interdimensional adaptability created unprecedented possibility. Remarkable control, observed Temuri's voice from the garden entrance. The integration appears more stable each time you transform. He turned to find both sand and cloud representatives approaching, no longer in formal diplomatic attire but practical shinobi gear appropriate for potential combat. Their presence together suggested deliberate coordination rather than coincidental timing. Joint security assessment, Naruto inquired with subtle humor, recognizing the professional excuse for what was clearly personal interest. Information exchange, Samui corrected precisely, though a hint of warmth softened her typically cool demeanor. Your dimensional stabilization technique, UES demonstrated today require proper documentation for implementation at other convergence points. And comparing your current manifestation with our historical records may identify important differences from the previous Venom sage. Temari added, her diplomatic skills smoothly building on Samui's premise. Preventing similar deterioration requires establishing accurate baseline measurements. Both justifications were entirely reasonable from professional perspective, and entirely transparent in their secondary purpose of continuing interaction outside formal summit constraints. The political and personal intertwined seamlessly in their approach. Of course, Naruto agreed, allowing amusement to show in his expression. Professional documentation is essential for international cooperation during dimensional crises. The shared recognition of the pretense created unexpected moment of genuine connection between the three, acknowledgement that beyond village politics and formal roles, they shared understanding of the extraordinary situation they faced together. As night settled over Konoha, 3 figures from different villages continued their information exchange in the diplomatic garden, discussing dimensional mechanics and historical precedents while gradually exploring the personal connections forming between them. Tomorrow would bring renewed political complexities and continued crisis response. But tonight allowed space for relationships to develop beyond national boundaries. Within Naruto, both the symbiote and Kurama observed these interactions with their respective perspectives, the symbiote recognizing potential allies who might strengthen their collective survival prospects, the ancient Biju viewing human connections with mixture of amusement and approval. The Venom Sage was emerging not just as power or weapon, but as diplomatic nexus, a convergence point where villages might find new frameworks for cooperation in face of threats that transcended traditional boundaries. Whether this role would lead to salvation or further complication remained to be seen, but the foundations were being established with each interaction. And beyond the village boundaries, throughout the 5 great nations, dimensional instabilities continued developing at precisely the locations marked on the ancient temple map, the convergence proceeding regardless of human diplomatic efforts or initial containment successes. The true test of their newfound cooperation still awaited. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.